Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Deku got legendary Devil's Dragon's quirk movie? If anyone ever saw Momo Yaoyorozu walking down the street, they would assume that she was just like them, an ordinary, 26-year-old woman. However, that's just what she wanted everyone to think. She never wanted to be known by everyone as the heiress of the Yaoyorozu conglomerate, and a modern-day Zaibatsu. She made sure that she would make a mark during her adult life, and not simply get by on her parents' name. And she would say that, so far, she has done pretty well. It was an ordinary Saturday morning within the Musutafu city of Shizuoka Prefecture, in Japan. 30 minutes, till noon, but since it was early summer, the sun wasn't killing everyone just yet. Plus, with the clouds in the sky, most would consider this the perfect day. Everyone was shopping within Tatooine Station, with small children hugging their happy parents, and the occasional news network interviewing people on the streets. All in all, a perfectly average day in the 21st century. Momo herself was smiling at the nice day, too. She was wearing civilian clothes on this fine morning, and was currently waiting for the train to drop her off at Tatooine Station, where she would be shopping the rest of her free Saturday. Closing her mind, she sighed in bliss, happy that her life was going just as planned. Her parents had prepared her for everything that could possibly happen in life. Languages, economics, mathematics, the sciences, even athletics. All of this had been done to ready her, and in her line of work, it was an excellent advantage. She had climbed the ranks ever since she was 18, and while many would consider her a workaholic, she was looking forward to relaxing. Now arriving at Musutafu, a small smile reached her lips. Perfect, she said to herself, as she walked out of the open doors of the train, and out of the station. First stop, the boutiques. Koda, wait up, his father yelled. Your mom said not to wander off too far. Koda wasn't listening to his old man. He was too busy staring to the far end of the street, his eyes wondering if they were playing tricks on him, or if the heat was getting to him. The light in front of him began to take shape, and slowly, but surely, something was appearing right in front of the teenager. Something big. Within the inner workings of Momo's mind, she was going 100 miles an hour. First, I think I'll get something with a frilly top. Then, I'll get a leather skirt with a built-in belt. And then, some knee-high boots, and a white dress shirt, and a dress that goes all the way to my knees, and... Wham! Ow! She yelped, as she tumbled down, and fell on her back. As she groaned in pain, her vision blurred as she saw that she had accidentally ran into a stop sign. Are you okay? Looking towards the sound of the voice, Momo saw a man about her age, with sharp, and obviously dyed, red hair, a small scar over his right eye. Not only that, but he was wearing the all-green outfit of the JSDF, which would explain why he also had a sidearm. Standing up, she smiled. Yes, thank you, Kirishima? The redhead hummed, before remembering, oh, yeah, the name tag, right. Sorry, I kinda forget that we have him right over our hearts. But yeah, Corporal Kirishima, reporting for duty. Me and a couple of other guys are just patrolling the town today for an exercise. Well, that would explain the uniform, Momo said, as she gave the officer a salute before walking off. Make us proud, soldier. Will do. Whoa, what is that? A movie prop? Civilians everywhere looked at the large building that seemingly appeared out of thin air in the span of minutes. It was a few stories tall, made of white marble, and it was in the shape of the Parthenon in Greece. A large blue crystal at the top of it, with 3 others on each side, holding the columns in place. Its entrance was dark, no one could see what was inside. Whoa, Koda uttered, as he was amazed by what he saw, just like everyone else. Koda, his mother yelled out, as she finally found him and his father in the crowd. Don't run off like that again, you two. What are you even looking at? Even his mother was entranced by what she was looking at. Then, something flew out. I wonder if I can get myself a kimono, Momo wondered to herself, as she kept walking down the shopping district of the little town, focusing on her own little world. Well, that was until she noticed a shadow dash over her. Huh? She looked up. Did something just? The locals of Musutafu still looked in awe and wonder as they saw more figures exit the gate. Some of them looked human, albeit riding unrecognizable mounts and dressed in armor, but some others stood 10 feet tall, had horns, and didn't look remotely human. One of the armored men blew into a horn, and then all went to hell. BWAAA. The armored humans pulled out spears and began to charge, while those on top of reptiles took to the skies and dive-bombed back into the crowds of people. The inhuman creatures screamed, and pulled out their swords and clubs, and advanced. As the Japanese civilians fled, the armored men pulled out their bows and drew out their arrows, pulled back, aimed up to an angle, and fired. And Eijiro Kirishima just happened to walk into all of this chaos. Momo Yaoyorozu could not believe what she was seeing. Over her head, and the heads of many other people, there was now some sort of flying reptile, which could best be described as a pterodactyl with the head and neck of a cobra, the wings of a bat, and the tip end of a scorpion, diving down to grab its prey. Its prey being the Japanese civilians she swore to protect. As many other people ran past her, Momo broke into a sweat, trying to deny what she was seeing. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself, but soon enough, she snapped back to reality and proceeded to run the opposite direction of everyone else. As she watched several monsters destroy the shops all around her, she weaved and dodged around them, occasionally shouting, "Out of the way. Damn, if this doesn't stop, people will die." Running, she noticed a guy cowering in terror, as she ran towards him, and yelled, "Get up! It's dangerous here. You have to run." When he didn't respond, she shouted, "Hey!" Looking up, the man, clearly panicking, asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Blam, Blam, Blam." Before she could answer, she looked towards the sound of gunfire, and saw a familiar mess of red hair firing towards the dragon-like creatures and their riders in the sky. Kirishima. Momo watched as the young soldier managed to ground one of the armored riders, and relax. That was a mistake, as the soldier suddenly got up, and ran towards him, pulling a dagger out from his back, and ready to stab the redhead, who was fresh out of bullets. Aarrgh. Before the warrior could sink his blade into Kirishima, Momo had already blocked him, grabbed him by the neck, and proceeded to tackle him to the pavement, holding him down, and restraining the man with a neckhold. The soldier struggled, trying to grab the black-haired woman's face. Momo was clearly struggling to hold him in place, when she noticed the man's dagger. Slowly grabbing it, she lifted it towards the man's neck, and plunged it into his throat, staging her dress. Splurt. As the man stopped moving, Momo turned back to Kirishima, and asked, "Are you all right?" The young man quickly snapped out of it and nodded in confirmation. "I need you to contact your superiors and tell them what's going on. I'll focus on evacuation and trying to get the police force here. We need to stop this from becoming a bloodbath." "All right." Elsewhere, a squadron of armored police trucks rushed down the streets, and stopped. Getting out were officers with riot gear and helmets, each officer armed and ready. "Tatuan Station has been largely occupied, but we'll defend this city to the death," the leader of the special assault team, Iawo Oguro, yelled to his subordinates. "Reinforcements are coming soon, so we just need to hold them off for the time being." "Where's the main force?" Koichi Himawari, his second in command, asked. "They're coming now." Rihihi. The horned horse neighed, as its rider, an armored man, examined the structures around him. The bandage wrappings around his head made his expression hard to read. "Structuri lateris et marmore sunt hic," the general said. "Domini," one of his subordinates asked. "I am Salvator Viter a liquid nota," the general, Kido, responded, as he kept marveling at the buildings all around him. "Non turbat, non muraris ubi nos ipsi invenomous." "Here they come," Oguro yelled, as his men held up their shields and rifles. Hhg. Several inhuman monsters appeared out of the smoke and fires, all of them with their weapons raised up high, as they charged towards the armored police. Braka braka. For the next few minutes, the police did everything in their power to stop the opposing force from getting any closer. Bullets kept flying out, and the end didn't seem in sight. "When are the reinforcements coming?" Himawari yelled, already sick of the monsters. "They're here," a new voice responded. Turning around, they saw a redhead in a familiar green uniform waving at them. "The Ground Self-Defense Force has sent choppers. FWOOSH, and as he said it, above them, a familiar-looking Boeing AH-64 Apache chopper flew right over them, and made contact with one of the flying monsters. Scree. Braka. Within seconds, the wyvern was riddled with holes, and it proceeded to crash down. As the armored soldiers gasped in horror, several Komatsu lavs pulled up, all of them filled with soldiers, pouring out, as the mounted weapons and their rifles began to fire. Braka braka braka. Within seconds, the monsters fell, and the armored humans learned that their shields were worthless against these sorts of projectiles, as they too fell, albeit a few seconds slower. The enemy's formation is broken. One of the higher-ranking soldiers, a guy with curly brown hair shaped in an afro, yelled, as he looked over to Kirishima. "It was smart of you to call us." "Yeah, well, communications is my specialty," he acknowledged. "Indeed," he hummed, as he handed him a rifle. "All right, the rest of us are going to advance and take back the area. I want you to help us find your missing teammates. Oh, and while we're at it, exterminate all of these monsters, with extreme prejudice. Let's send them back to hell." "Yes, sir." Momo had long since left Kirishima, and as she promised, she focused on evacuation. She finally finished explaining what had happened to the local Musutafu police, and was now let go. As she looked over the sea of civilians who had fled, she saw something. A teenage kid, by himself, on the verge of crying. Walking towards them, she kneeled down, and gave them the friendliest smile. "What's wrong?" she asked, extending her hand. "You can't find your mom and dad." The young boy, she guessed 15, slowly nodded. Standing up, Momo smiled. "All right, then let's go find them. What's your name?" The teen spoke up. "My name is Kota Izumi." Holding his hand, Momo smiled. "It's nice to meet you. I wish it was under better circumstances." Braka 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 braka. The sounds of gunfire could be heard as the Japanese self-defense force mowed down hordes and hordes of creatures, both big and small, as they tried to reclaim the town. Eijiro Kirishima was not one of them. During a particularly nasty encounter with a big red monster wielding dual clubs, he got separated from the rest of the group, and was now by himself in the middle of the street, with a very limited supply of ammunition. "Stupid idiot," he cursed himself. "Can't even get one damn thing right." He immediately stopped his self-deprecating thoughts, as he looked up and saw something big, tall, made of white marble, and adorned with blue crystals on all sides. This must be what's causing all of these problems. Rawr. Oh, my God. Turning around, Eijiro scrambled and screamed, as she saw 3 more of those giant monsters appear from behind them. On instinct, he immediately pulled up his borrowed weapon, and pulled the trigger. Braka 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 braka. All 3 of the giants fell immediately, but before Eijiro could relax, he heard a scuffle from behind him, and in a wild panic, fired without looking. Braka braka braka. Stopping and gathering his bearings, he saw a 4th one, which had fallen onto its back when he wildly fired bullets into the pavement in front of it. This one was smaller than the other ones, around his height, but with a tail, and it appeared to be better dressed than the other ones. The creature quickly tried to pull back, as it clawed onto the pavement behind it to get away from the redhead, but all Eijiro saw was the red mask with horns it was droning, and the spear it was holding in its arm. He approached it, aiming his gun, and ready to fire, when Misericordia! Misericordia! The gun didn't go off. Eijiro didn't shoot. He couldn't. He knew what that word meant. Mercy. Looking back down at the girl, it had a girl's voice. Looking back down at the girl, he saw that she was breathing heavily, and behind the scary mask, he could see her eyes. Even with her black sclera wrapping around her golden eyes, he could understand her emotion. It was fear. She was afraid of him. He didn't know what to do. Was he supposed to capture enemies alive? His superior told him to exterminate them, but to do that to someone who just begged for their life. Eventually, he lowered his rifle, and pointed towards the gate. Vade. Slowly, the horned girl grabbed her spear, turned around, and ran. She dashed towards the gate, but before she went back in, she turned around and looked at Eijiro one last time. And then, she was gone. A few minutes later, the soldiers he got separated from arrived, and made a perimeter around the gate. "There you are. Thought we lost you." The curly brown-haired officer smiled. "And I see that you racked yourself up some kills. Nice. Did you get all of them?" Yeah," Kirishima lied. "Yeah, I did." It had now been a few hours since the initial invasion of the unknown forces, and Momo was walking through the debris, where the JSDF was now doing post-battle cleanup, removing corpses, checking for survivors, all of the unpleasantries of war. But Momo was focused on other things. She walked up towards a familiar face. Despite his military status, he had long and messy black hair, which went all the way to his shoulders. His facial hair was short and stubby, and his eyes made it look like he hadn't slept in years, or that he was just entering his 40s. Saluting him, Momo said, "Lieutenant General Aizawa. First Lieutenant Yaoyorozu. Of course it was you," he sighed. "Still, I figure it was probably best that it was you. You did well with the evacuation. We only have 71 casualties so far. I'm sure that the media vultures and the politicians will be singing your praises for months to come." Regardless of that, she said, "What exactly happened? That's what everyone would like to find out. We've secured whatever the hell it is that spewed out those things, but our current problem is that none of the captives speak Japanese." "We have captives? Almost 100, he said, as he pointed to one of them. "We think he's the leader." The leader, a man with bandages covering his face, was currently struggling with the handcuffs and yelling at the soldiers who were trying to interrogate him. "Hoc mihi facere non potas. Ego sum dukes in exorcita imperatoris Todoroki. Omnia capita tua habe bunt. Euro. We're trying to figure out what they're saying, but..." Before Aizawa could finish, Momo immediately ran past him and kneeled down towards the armored soldier, and spoke. "Potestas intelligere?" The lieutenant general looked at his subordinate in confusion. "Yaoyorozu, what are you?" "Ida. Quomodo mi intelligere potwisti? Nemo alus potist." Aizawa's eyes widened as he saw Momo converse with the captured invader. "Simplex," the black-haired woman responded. "Linguam tuamut puer studui. In nostro imperio natus es. Cs. Essum. Mi penitet," said Eras. Momo corrected him. "Hic natus sum, et pro patria pugnabo." "Lieutenant Yaoyorozu," Aizawa said, in a tone the younger soldier knew meant that her commanding officer was trying to get her attention. "How did you know what he was saying?" Getting up, Momo looked at him and said, "Sir, it's Latin. He's speaking Latin." Within the next 24 hours, the entire world knew about what would later be dubbed by the media as the Musutafu incident. With videos surfacing all over YouTube about Japanese civilians being attacked by monsters, along with the news media getting glimpses of the chaos of the JSDF fighting off the invaders, as well as any foreigners who immediately reported this to their country of origin, it was an inevitability. To even consider keeping this under wraps was a joke. By the end of the next day, the current Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshimasa Mera, was ready to address the situation, not just to the Japanese public, but to the entire world. Mera was a man approaching his 50s, with beige hair. And if Shota Aizawa's eyes made it look like he hadn't slept in years, then Mera's made it look like he hadn't slept in decades. And yesterday's incident was not helping his sleep schedule. "Naturally, this land does not appear on any map," Mera said, remembering the reports of the initial soldiers who went in yesterday. "We don't know what lies beyond the gate, or what it is like. Everything about it is a mystery. We apprehended many of the attackers of the previous incident. At present, they are no more than criminals, who have broken the law, or in other words, terrorists. Destroying the gate will not solve his problem. We fear that it may simply lead to the opening of another gate elsewhere in Japan. Thus, we have decided to consider the land beyond the gate, the special region, a part of Japan," he continued. "And in order to learn what is on the other side, as well as to bring any forces to the negotiation table, we have determined that it is necessary to go beyond the gate, even if it is dangerous. For the purpose of investigating the special region, apprehending the ringleader of this atrocity, and securing compensation by force, the government of Japan will dispatch the self-defense force to the other side of the gate." A small part of Mera knew that the thunderous applause he heard was hollow. The following day, Momo marched into position, along with almost 100 ground soldiers from the Japanese self-defense force, as they all made their way towards Tatooine Station. Getting into position, she saw as Aizawa stood up on the podium, and began speaking into the microphone. "My name is Aizawa. I'm your commander. Thanks to Prime Minister Yoshimasa Mera's blessing, we are now ready to dispatch you to the special region. All of you, the mission which you have been charged with is of grave importance. Nobody knows what will happen to us in the special region," Aizawa continued. "Thus, you must be prepared for combat to begin with the moment we cross the gate." Even though Momo was listening to the speech, her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking back to earlier that day. While civilians weren't allowed anywhere near Tatooine Station anymore, They still were around the barrier where the JSDF made a checkpoint to make sure no unauthorized personnel came across. And across that checkpoint, they had made a memorial. A few hours ago, as Momo was walking down the street with the rest of the troops, she looked to her side to see the memorial. Rows and rows of flowers for the deceased, along with grieving friends and relatives, all of them crying in front of the flowers. And that's when she saw them. Passing them by, she saw an adult, a brown-haired woman who was crying. But the older grieving woman wasn't what caught Momo's eyes. It was the kid. It was Kota. She never did find his parents a few days back, didn't she? She tried to help them for a few hours, but by the time the cleanup was ready, she handed him over to the local police, as she left to go find Lieutenant General Aizawa. She hoped that he would find his parents, but not like this. "We'll be entering the gate shortly." As Aizawa finished his speech, the sour feeling returned to Momo, as she loaded her rifle. "Ready." She heard Kirishima's voice over one of the vehicle's speakers, as she, and several other soldiers, entered them. "That's right," he said. "He's a communications specialist, isn't he? Begin. Stay frosty, and watch your vision clocks like your lives depend on them. Move out." With Aizawa's order, the trucks began to drive forward, as the tanks followed behind them. Inside one of the armored vehicles, Momo looked out the window, and she saw that her truck was fast approaching the gaping darkness that was the entrance to the gate. Aizawa, the Major General, Hisashi Yamada, said, "The advance party has entered the gate. Worst case, if we are engaged in combat immediately, we'll just respond with the forces that we have currently ready," Aizawa said, as his friend and subordinate nodded. Within the gate, it was pitch black. Even with the lights of the vehicles on, the only things anyone could see were the other trucks and tanks. They couldn't even see 5 feet in front of the road, almost as if it was an empty void between Japan and the other side. It certainly felt like one to Momo. The temperature immediately dropped, and she could start seeing her own breath in front of her. Looking towards the front, she could see Kirishima in the passenger seat, and he was getting a bit anxious. Eventually they saw it. A literal bright light at the end of the tunnel. It was shaped as a rectangle, just like the entrance to the Japanese side of the gate. And out of the darkness, they found a hillside. The other side of the gate landed them into the middle of a bunch of hills, surrounded by dead trees to the front, and a mountain range to the back, and fog everywhere. It was the crack of dawn, and the sun was just about getting ready to peek out. As the first tank came out of the gate and stopped, they all saw it. Hundreds of small lights, out in the distance, torches. It was a massive army, with hundreds of soldiers, both human and not. The soldiers could even see a few dozen of the wyverns from Tatooine Station above them. "Enemy army sighted," Kirishima yelled through the speakers. Slam. In an instant, the soldiers slammed open the back doors of the heavy trucks, and ran to find cover. Once found, they propped up their weapons, and waited. As Momo adjusted her helmet, the sun had fully risen. And then, she heard Aizawa's voice on the radio ordering them to open fire. The fighting barely lasted 2 days. During the initial first day, the Japanese self-defense force was able to shoot down anyone who got too close. As it turned out, bows and arrows were practically worthless in the face of M4 carbine assault rifles and the various anti-tank missiles. After the first retreat, the enemy forces decided that they would try to sneak up on the JSDF under the cover of the night. The end result of that was devastating, as the medieval army couldn't comprehend the idea of night vision goggles and thermal scopes. After that, they attempted an aerial assault with their wyverns. All it took was a well-placed aim from one of the self-propelled howitzers to knock them out of the sky. By that time, any surviving forces were smart enough to retreat. However, the fact remained that hundreds of them had been taken casualty. And not a single member of the JSDF was lost. By the third day, the middle of the battlefield became a wasteland. The opposing armies had long since retreated, and the JSDF was now able to advance. In the early mornings, while the fog was still prevalent, soldiers walked the no man's land. Momo Yaoyorozu walked by herself in the middle of the empty field, as she heard the crows, vultures, and other scavengers flying over her head, cawing excitedly at their feast. In fact, she could see dozens of them flying over her head and landing down to eat. In front of her, she could see the remnants of spears, pikes, and helmets, all of them making it look like this had all come out of some sort of war movie about Sparta. Looking over to the other side, she saw that Kirishima was kneeling down, and holding something. Upon further inspection, it was part of a wooden bow, with the string still attached. I heard we killed almost 1,500 of them, she said, trying to strike up a conversation. Didn't they send like 1,500 to Musutafu, too? He asked, standing up. Yes, but only 1,400 of them were killed. So that's 3,000 soldiers in total, he growled. Momo looked at the redhead worryingly. Are you worried about the enemy? Think about it. 3,000 soldiers, all of them heading straight for the gate. They clearly didn't know what was on the other side, hence why they got wiped out so easily. What the hell kind of country sends 3,000 soldiers into unknown enemy territory, with literal sticks and stones as their only weapons? As he yelled out his frustrations, Kirishima threw the broken bow out of his sight. As Momo walked through the beginning foundations of their base, her mind kept wandering back to what Kirishima said during their patrol earlier that day. He was right, it made no sense. There was no way that there would be any nation in this, or any other world, that would be stupid enough to go into an unknown territory, guns blazing, and expect complete victory. They had to have done some sort of advanced investigation, used spies, anything like that, but no, they just charged in blindly. What happened in both Musutafu and in the special region was a complete waste of manpower and resources. The only thing that could have come out of something like this was that whatever survivors there were would go back to their superiors to warn them of the enemy. Unless that was some sort of elaborate suicide mission, something was up. But she really couldn't think about it for the time being. For some reason, Nomori Kayama, the Major General, had summoned her to her office. It wasn't much of an office as it was a private tent. There were talks of establishing a permanent military base around the area, but they had literally just gone to the other side less than 5 days ago, so any such plans to do such a thing were a few months away, tops. Entering, Momo saluted, and said, "You called for me, ma'am?" "I did," she said. Kayama was around Aizawa's age, but her service in the military gave them both a healthy athletic build, but for Kayama, it also made her look like she was 10 years younger than she actually was. With dark hair and sky-blue eyes hiding behind her red glasses, she stood up from her makeshift desk, and addressed Yaoyorozu once more. "I'm going to be frank with you," she said. "Thanks to your discovery, we have been able to get linguists to help us with learning all we can about the enemy, but it's not enough. The higher-ups have come to the conclusion that we need to investigate the people, ecology, industries, religions, geology, and politics of this region, among other things." "So, you're sending someone to investigate? A recon team?" "Unfortunately, no," the superior officer answered. "It has been decided by our oh-so-wonderful politicians that we should try to investigate this world peacefully, which means knowing the local language, and determining their nature, and, if possible, establish a friendly relationship. So, look, it's basically like this," the glasses-wearing general explained. "We were asked to make a team of scientists, mechanics, communications specialists, and the like to explore this world, but they gave us 2 conditions. 1, they all have to read and speak Latin, at the bare minimum, and 2, they're all combat capable. In other words, from the JSDF. And how many ended up fitting that criteria? Only 14, you included," Kayama said. "First Lieutenant Momo Yaoyorozu, you have been authorized to fully command the first ever Special Region Exploration Unit. The mission is to go out into the special region and discover everything you possibly can, by any means necessary, and report back to base 1 month after your deployment. Do you accept it?" "Yes, Mom." "No hesitation, I like that," she smiled. "All right then, come on over to my desk. I don't bite. I have the pictures and profiles of your very own ragtag team of adventurers." Nodding, Momo walked closer towards her superior's desk, who pulled out a file containing 13 profile pages, all of them with photos. "All right, we're starting with this one," Kayama said, handing Momo the profile of a blonde man with blue eyes. "This is 2nd Lieutenant Nato Monoma. We had him and his girlfriend shipped out of our base in Kanagawa. He'll be your second in command. He may appear to have an inferiority complex, but deep down, he's a good soldier. This right here is Sergeant Major Itsuka Kendo." The profile picture shows a woman with orange hair and teal eyes. Monoma's girlfriend. She is an expert in hand-to-hand combat. Karate, taekwondo, jujutsu, kung fu, if you can name it, she can kick your ass in that type of martial art. She has a friendly personality, and will help you reign in Monoma. And here we have Sergeant Major Katsuki Bakugo. A man with spiky ash blonde hair and piercing eyes is the profile picture. Demolitions expert. RDX, PETN. Amitol. Composition B. Composition C. TNT. We'll be giving him all the good stuff, and then some. He may appear crude, arrogant and aggressive, but don't worry, we've vetted him thoroughly. He's good. The next one is Master Sergeant Ochako Uraraka. The picture has a woman with brown eyes and equally brown hair, in a bob cut. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Astronomy and Astrophysics. She may appear bubbly and cheery, but she is determined as can be, seeing how she climbed the ranks so quickly. Friendly word of advice, don't piss her off. After that is Sergeant First Class Yui Kodai. A woman with black hair, also styled in a bob cut, blue eyes, and an expressionless face. Holds a bachelor degree in health sciences, specifically in clinical health sciences. She'll be your combat medic and field doctor. Keep in mind that she doesn't talk much, and has a quiet personality, if a bit promiscuous. Next up is Corporal Yosetsu Awase. The picture is of a man with spiky black hair that is held up with a headband. Holds a Bachelor of Science in Automotive Technology. He's also the genius who souped up your vehicles for the mission, making them all-wheel drives, incorporating solar panels alongside the turret guns, and making a new type of light armor. Up next, Corporal Kanoko Komori. Just like Uraraka, the woman in this picture has a bob cut, but unlike her, her brown hair covers her eyes completely. Holds a bachelor degree in life and earth sciences, specifically in botany and plant science. Her profile picture may make her look shy, but she is extremely excitable and gleeful. Fair warning, she loves mushroom puns. Then, we have Corporal Rikido Sato. The picture is of a man with spiky brown hair, tan skin, and big lips. He is a British immigrant who holds a bachelor's in culinary arts, so he'll be acting as your group's cook, with his expertise being in sweets. His personality is pretty chill, if a bit dull, but he is ready and willing to fight alongside the rest of you. Afterwards, we have Corporal Eijiro Kirishima. Despite the fact that the photo featured a man with black hair which went down to his shoulders, instead of red, upright hair, Momo knew who this was. He'll be your radio communications specialist, both in machine operation and the codes used. He has an outgoing and confident persona, but I think it's a facade. Moving on, this is Private First Class Hirayu Rin. The photo was of a guy with lightly tanned skin, and black hair that was shaped in a braid. A Chinese immigrant, he holds a bachelor degree in zoology, and his job will be to document any new fauna found in the special region. Has a serious demeanor, but will work with others diligently. Following him, we have Private First Class Yuga Aoyama. The picture shows a man with blonde hair and a rather feminine face. He is a French immigrant, who will be your team's sniper. Turns out, he's talented, hence why he's a sniper despite his current rank. He may come off as vain and prideful, but he's actually a really compassionate and kind-hearted individual. And then there's this fella, Private Sen Kaibara. The profile picture features a man with shaggy, dark brown hair. He holds 2 degrees in both geology and geophysics. He can flop between a level-headed personality which is both calm and focused, to a belligerent personality who'd agree to any stupid dare his friends ask of him. You'll want to keep him in the former. And last but not least, Private Kosei Subaraba. The profile picture featured a man with spiky, light brown hair. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Meteorology. Usually, he has an enthusiastic personality. However, he's also best friends with Kaibara, so his more lecherous side might appear whenever the two of them are together. Any questions? Ma'am? Momo asked, as she read over the files she was given. No one here is over the age of 27. Hell, the oldest one of us is Bakugo, at 27. Well, of course. As it turns out, the majority of your team took Latin as an extracurricular class during their university days, so they're not completely rusty, Kayama explained. The ones who didn't either studied it on their own as a hobby, or they learned it outside of the country. I see, Momo whispered to herself. One more question. This page says that we'll only be taking 3 of Corporal Awase's modified vehicles, each one capable of holding 5 of us. However, aside from our gear and weapons, I don't see anywhere where we would be able to store our food, camping supplies, scientific equipment, or well, anything else. And that's where the neat part comes in, the Lieutenant General said, as she opened up a box, and handed Momo the contents. Do you know what this is? A sack? A really fancy one? Momo gave the bag a thorough inspection. It was small, the leather was dyed purple, there was a golden belt around it, and it had some odd-looking runes all over it. Oh, and it also had a strap. How convenient. Not exactly, Kayama said. We actually confiscated it from General Kido. Momo gave the general a confused look. Who? The guy you spoke Latin to? Bandages covering his face? Oh, right, him? Momo remembered. Exactly, the higher-ranking soldier nodded. Apparently, it's a magic bag. And before you ask, yes, we tested it ourselves. According to him, it can hold up to 200 kilograms of materials, as long as it does not exceed 1800 liters. Momo simply stared at the bag in disbelief. There's no way this is real. It has to be some kind of trick. I mean, the implications of pocket dimensions are just. Yes, we know, Kayama nodded along with Momo. The problem is, we can't cut it open to find out, or we risk destroying it, and this is the only one we have. So, Aizawa figured that if we can't study it, it could still be of use to us. We already calculated what you'll be taking with you. Food, camping supplies, scientific equipment, explosives, drones, scuba gear, it's all in there. You can test it for yourself. All you have to do is put your hand in, visualize what you want, and pull out. Okay, Momo said, skeptically. What have you put in there? Try a pack of ground beef. Unsure, but nodding, Momo put her hand into the bag, and imagined an everyday pack of beef she would get from the supermarket. Pulling out, she felt that her hand was holding. No beeping. Way. I told you so. A neatly wrapped up packet of ground beef. It's still fresh. I can feel the cold. The best theory we have so far is that the objects that go into the bag end up in some sort of stasis, so nothing would end up spoiling, Kayama said, as she handed a piece of paper to Momo. Here, this is an inventory of everything that we put into the magic bag. It includes weight and volume, too. The other reason we're loaning this to you is so that whenever there's enough room, you'll put in something that is local for the special region, you know, to give us something tangible alongside your report. Photos, flora, weapons, magical items, whatever. Understood, ma'am. Great, Kayama smiled. Get well rested, and pack up all of your essentials. Lieutenant Yaoyorozu. You all leave in 2 days, specifically, at 10 in the morning. Eijiro double-checked his pack as he made his way towards what was basically a parking lot, passing several other soldiers on his way. Though, to be fair, it wasn't a parking lot, as it was more like a flat plain where all of the military's vehicles were parked. Still, he could not believe his life. In less than a week, not only did he help stop an otherworldly invasion of Japan, but he did it alongside the Momo Yaoyorozu, the heiress of the Yaoyorozu conglomerate, who he didn't even know was a member of the JSDF at the time. And now, he was going on a mission with the very same Lieutenant Yaoyorozu. Arriving towards his designated mission destination, he was amazed by what he saw. Right in front of him were 3 trucks he vaguely recognized as Komatsu Labs, but they were different. Sure, they still have the turret gun on top of each of them, but are those tiny solar panels on the roofs? He stopped and rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. Holy crap, they seriously spared no expense for this mission. Next thing they're gonna tell us is that they're air-conditioned too. Bump. Breaking out of his stop, he felt something shoving into his back, as he turned around and saw a guy with spiky blonde hair and scary-looking wheeling an open crate in front of him. Hey, shitty hair, if you're looking for the visitor's center, go all the way back to the gate and beep right off back to Musutafu, he growled, before muttering, not even wearing your helmet. Excuse me? Eijiro asked, before he noticed that something fell off one of the guy's crates. Picking it up, he said, Hey, you dropped your dynamite. Eijiro began to sweat a bit, as he asked, heh, what else have you, got in there? Grabbing the stick of dynamite, the grumpy-looking blonde said, oh, you know, C4, nitroglycerin, notepads, fuses, TNT, glue, paper clips. Big ones. You know, just the office supplies. Before Eijiro could figure out whether or not the guy was being sarcastic, the dude simply walked away, and a new voice entered his ears. Corporal Kirishima. There you are. Turning around, he saw Lieutenant Yaoyorozu. Hey, it's good to see you. Likewise, she smiled, as she introduced a different blonde man who was next to her. Kirishima, this is Second Lieutenant Monoma. He'll be the second in command of this operation. Corporal Kirishima, the blonde smiled, shaking Eijiro's hand. Pleasure to meet one of the heroes of Musutafu. Did you shoot up any monsters? I saw the photos, they were really ugly. The redhead winced a bit at that, but he let out a strained smile and said, a couple. All right, you can introduce yourselves later, Yaoyorozu said. Line up. Fall in. Monoma yelled, as he, and every other soldier Momo was now responsible for, stood in attention, their uniforms packed to the brim. Saluting, he said, ready to go, ma'am. Thank you, Momona, she said, saluting back. If she was nervous, she was good at hiding it. This was her first time leading a team all by herself, and for the past 2 days she was freaking out on the inside. But now was not the time to deal with that. Now, she had to act serious. Hello, I'm Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, she announced, loud enough to be heard. All right, before we head out, I want to establish a few rules. We're going to be the first outsiders the natives will ever see, so I want to leave them with a positive impression. That means no destroying settlements or monuments that may be inhabited or culturally significant towards them. That also means not taking anything of theirs without asking, and making sure that it's not a sacred treasure of theirs. We're not the British Museum. And absolutely no killing, unless explicitly for self-defense. I don't want these people to remember us as conquistadors. Any questions? A few hands went up. Okay, let's start with you. Private Aoyama, what is your question? Doesn't this outfit make me look très magnifique? We're all wearing the same outfit, Momo said, rolling her eyes at the blonde sniper. I would suggest you focus more on staying alive than how you look, Private Aoyama. Your words might wound my heart, but they do not make me glow any less. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Momo said. Private Kaibara, your question. I don't want to offend anyone, but are we really ready for this? He asked. You have all been doing military service for nearly an entire decade. If Corporal Kirishima and myself could survive the Musutafu incident, you can all survive this mission. Yeah, but I was a mechanic, Corporal Awase speaks up. I mean, I was pretty good at inventing new shit, like our souped-up labs, but I've never been in an actual firefight before. All of you have had training in live fire exercises, correct? The raven-haired commander asked. I mean, yes, but the majority of us barely know each other. I only know Sen here because we were stationed together when we got called here, Private Tsuburaba answered. How are we supposed to work together, regardless of the fact that we all went through the same training? Well, then it's a good thing that we'll all be working together for the foreseeable future. That should give you all plenty of time to get to know your comrades, should it not? Momo smiled. Everyone works, everyone drives, and we all take shifts as lookouts. Sighing, the first lieutenant says, look, I'm going to sugarcoat this, soldiers. Japan has a crisis on its hands. We have no idea what's out there. For the average civilian, this could be seen as the end times. However, we are not the average civilian. We are the JSDF. Each one of us has been hand-selected for our completely unique set of abilities. We have the resources and the willpower to complete this mission, and to make it back alive. Now, let's get going. Understood, ma'am, Monoma said, as he turned to the rest of the squad. All right, soldiers. Lieutenant Yaoyorozu wants this convoy moving 5 minutes ago. Move, move, move. In less than a few seconds, all 14 soldiers had now gotten into their assigned seats, ready to go. The vehicles blared to life, and a few minutes later, the 3 cars had exited the recently erected checkpoint, with the guards saluting them off to their mission. And so, at 10 in the morning, the Special Region Exploration Unit had moved out. 30 minutes later, they were now on the road. Lieutenant Yaoyorozu was in the leading car, along with Awase as her driver, Uraraka as the gunner, and Kirishima in the back. Meanwhile, Monoma had the vehicle in the middle, which had Rin as the driver, Kodai, Komori and Kaibara as the gunner, and Kendo led the rear with Sato as the driver, Bakugo and Tsuburaba in the back, and Aoyama as the gunner. 16 minutes after leaving the area that was the battlefield that occurred less than 5 days ago, the area around them had become much cleaner. There were no more signs of burned down trees, damaged weapons, dead wyverns, or the bodies of soldiers. The sky was now much clearer, with only the occasional cloud or two in the sky, and by the 17-minute mark, the SREU could see lush hills, tall grass, forests, mountains, and above all, a road. Or, to be more accurate, multiple roads. They weren't paved for anything of the sort, they were merely dirt paths which showed that the locals had traveled through that part of the grasslands enough times to make the surrounding plant life stop trying to take root there, but good enough for them. The car ride for the most part was silent, especially in the leading car, which had Momo in the passenger seat, writing down anything of interest. Looking around, she told the driver, "Awase, slow down here. Kirishima, radio the others and tell them to stop here." "Why'd we stop here all of a sudden?" Kendo asked. "Look over to that direction," Momo pointed, and everyone looked. "We can't see the gate or the base from there. Heck, I'm fairly certain that the battlefield itself is now over the horizon. I believe that this is the perfect place to conduct our first series of tests."
"Tests, ma'am?" Kodai asked. "Yes, tests," Momo said, before looking over at a few soldiers. "Sergeant Uraraka, see if you can take notice of any differences between this world and Earth. Corporal Komori, please examine the local flora. Private Kaibara, I want you to analyze the soil samples. Private Subaraba, I want you to take atmospheric readings and find out the composition of the atmosphere."
"Understood, ma'am," Uraraka nodded, as did the other three. "Good." Pulling out the magical bag from her side, Momo put her hand into the pocket dimension and handed each one of them their equipment to run the proper tests. "Whoa," Kirishima let out a low whistle. "So that's magic, huh? Manly." "Manly?" Momo repeated the word. Yeah. Anything I like I call manly. It's just my thing," he said, scratching his head. "Oh, well, that's pretty manly, I guess." A little less than a half hour later and... "So, what did you find?" Momo asked. Uraraka stepped up to her commanding officer first, and showed her a rock and a stick in either one of her hands. Letting go of them at the same time, both fell to the ground. Looking down at the rock and stick, the brown-haired soldier said, "I can safely say that this world's gravitational pull is a safe, normal, 9.8 meters per square second, ma'am. That means that this world is either roughly, or exactly the same size as our planet. Once it gets dark, I should be able to see if there are any constellations I can recognize." "All right, do so once we set up camp. Komori? The majority of trees surrounding us right now are mostly deciduous trees, but I also saw a couple of coniferous trees, as well," the botanist replied. "And the grass around us is nothing special, just your standard grass. Kentucky bluegrass, blue grama, buffalo grass, the usual. I'm honestly kinda disappointed, ma'am. No new species of fungi." "We'll search again later," Momo reassured her subordinate. "Kaibara? Soil composition is just the same as back home," the geologist answered. "Feldspars, micas, and quartz, mostly, plus some pyroxenes and hornblends, as well. I also borrowed the compass you gave Uraraka, and I can safely say that there's a good chance that the planet's core is also made of iron, if the compass working is any indication." "I see, Subaraba. Well, the good news is we won't die from breathing in the air," Subaraba chuckled. "The atmosphere is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. I also picked up traces of carbon dioxide, neon, and hydrogen, as well. The majority of the clouds in the sky are cumulus and stratus clouds, but I can assure you all of them exist back home." "Why did you ask them to do all that?" Sato asked. "We were asked to find out everything about this world, Corporal," Momo answered. "That includes the ground, atmosphere, flora, and fauna, as well as the people. Hence why we have geologists, meteorologists, botanists, and various other scientists on this team." "And Cook?" "Yes," the commanding officer chuckled, "and Cook. Anywho, Monoma?" "Understood, ma'am," the blonde second in command nodded. "All right, back to your assigned vehicles. We'll keep driving for the rest of the day, and then make camp in the evening." Continuing with their drive, Private Hirayu Rin was looking at the beautiful scenery through the windows, when he noticed that the soldier across from his seat, Katsuki Bakugo, was reading something. Taking a closer look, the title read, "Monster Manual, 5th edition." "Wait, what? You done squinting?" Bakugo growled. "Sorry," Hirayu said. "But I gotta ask, why the book? Isn't that a manual from that Dungeons and Dragons game? You know, The one for nerds and socially awkward adults? Then how do you know about it, nerd? Bakugo shot back, before relenting, and saying, think about it. We're out here on a mission to explore a fantasy world, where literal wyverns came out of a gate that magically appeared out of nowhere and began eating people. You saw all the videos everyone posted on YouTube, same as me. So, if reading this book gives me an edge on making it out of this place alive, then I'm gonna read the beeping book. But, it's for a game. There's no way in hell that it'll be accurate to this world. Alright, don't read it. When you get eaten by a dragon, don't blame me. Man, you're crazy. With the initial scans of the environment done, Momo enjoyed looking at the local scenery now that she knew that this world's atmosphere wasn't going to slowly kill her and her team. She saw James Cameron's Avatar. She knew it was a possibility. Still, a small part of her felt a bit of comfort knowing that even though she was technically in another world, some basic things wouldn't always stay the same. It sure is peaceful, don't you agree, Kirishima? Looking up from the radio, the redhead said, huh? Oh, yeah, I guess. The scenery sure is beautiful, Momo continued. With all due respect, Lieutenant, Awase interjected. We have beautiful scenery back in Japan. So far, all we've seen are trees that we can find back home. I mean, I dunno. I figured we'd see a fairy, or a wyvern that wasn't being ridden by those Roman cosplaying assholes. Corporal Awase, I'll have you know that the research we are doing is extremely vital, and that everything you have just said proves my point, the raven-haired officer retorted. Oh, yeah? How? Well, while the trees Corporal Komori classified are also found on Earth, it still shows that there's a major chance that we'll find more flora and fauna aside from those local plants and humans existing in this world, which also hail from ours. In other words, we have a higher chance of recognizing such threats, and in turn, defending ourselves from them. So, you're saying that there's a good chance that we'll be fighting against regular bears instead of giant fire-breathing dragons? Awase asked. And, that's somehow a good thing? Yes, the raven-haired first lieutenant answered curtly. I would very much prefer to combat a bear, as we'll at least know what we're going up against. But, like I said, the scenery is still quite beautiful, Momo said. Sunny day, clean air, not a single trace of pollution, and the best part, it's peaceful, and it's quiet. Boom. Before Momo could even finish her sentence, something crashed down into the middle of the road, faster than a meteorite, and created a dust storm from the impact of the blast. It was nothing short of a miracle that Awase stepped on the brake when it hit, and that none of the others crashed into them from the sudden stop. The first thing she could hear after the crash was Kirishima yelling. Enemy contact. Your Imperial Majesty, Mokami-ji said, bowing before the throne. We have received a report from one of our wyvern riders. The gate at the Colobus Hills has apparently been taken over by the enemy, and they rained fire on our troops and mercenaries. A little over 100 of them are now fleeing for their lives. That one wyvern rider was our sole survivor of his brigade. Just as Enji had predicted. The most rebellious of his vassals had been successfully eliminated, but now, he had to deal with the matter of this new enemy. A scorched earth policy should prevent the enemy forces from eating the Empire's agriculture, and make them back off. Still, the main issue for the moment was that he had no idea how powerful this new threat was. General Kamiji wasn't one to use figurative speech, so chances are they had plenty of mages capable of using fire. But so many of them that only 100 troops escaped with their lives? And only a single wyvern rider? Something didn't add up. Not even the Demon King to the west or the Elven Queen to the south had that sort of firepower, on such a massive scale. Sure, they had plenty of powerful allies, capable of taking down entire armies, but to have that many powerful mages together? Not feasible. Not only that, but since Kamiji herself wasn't there, he couldn't press her for further details. The wyvern rider, sure, but that would have to wait after they recuperated. Seeing all of your allies get obliterated in front of you was bound to have negative effects on a soldier's psyche. Still, though, it gave Emperor Enji Todoroki some time to think and plan. Perhaps a few hours of training with Shoto would refresh his mind a bit. Enemy contact. That was not what Momo wanted to hear from Kirishima less than an hour after starting their mission. Fortunately for her and her team, the JSDF prepared them for such a scenario. Hence, their assault rifles. As soon as Kirishima sounded the alarm, everyone had grabbed their weapons and half of them had gotten out of their vehicles, their guns aimed towards whatever had crash-landed in front of them. Momo still couldn't see what had landed in front of them through all the dust. Kirishima claiming it to be an enemy might have been hasty, but she wasn't taking any chances. For all she knew, the same people who invaded Musutafu had just launched ammo from a catapult at them, or some sort of monster just landed right in front of them. Whatever it was, she would act with protocol. Mentally switching over to Latin, Momo announced. Whoever is in that dust cloud, stop moving, immediately. In accordance with Japan's rules of engagement, we will not attack unless in self-defense, surrender, and we swear that we will treat you humanely, as per international law. Please, do not force our hand. No movement. Maybe it was just a rock, Kirishima suggested. Crashing down on us at such high speeds at that angle. Not likely, Awase replied. Shish. The dust is clearing up, Momo hissed. Both soldiers shut up and steadied their weapons. The dust cloud began to break up, and right in front of them was a girl. Hey, Fuyumi said, grabbing Mo's attention. How did it go? If you're referring to the meeting with your father, then the usual. He'll be off to train with Shoto, the green-haired knight told the princess. He still doesn't suspect a thing. Good. The less he suspects, the easier it is to stage our little takeover. On that much, Mo could agree with her red and white mistress. Everyone, stand aside, Kodai shouted as she approached the fallen girl. Upon further inspection, she noted certain physical characteristics of this girl. Physically speaking, she was around Kodai's age. She was a few inches taller than Kodai, with long blonde hair and skin tone that would be associated with Europeans. However, there were a few things that were off about her. One was that, despite the seriously high speed she crashed down onto the ground, she was practically fine, unconscious, and with a few scrapes and bruises, but that was it. The second, and more obvious issue was her wings. Aside from the sword and the full body armor she was wearing, which made her seem like a medieval knight, on her back were two large, white, bird-like wings on her back. It almost made her seem like an angel. Turning around, Momo asked, Sergeant Bakugo, what was that? That thing, it's an angel, the spiky blonde said, handing her a book. Taking a look at the page it was on, Momo read, an angel is a celestial agent sent forth into the planes to further its god's agenda for weal or woe. Its sublime beauty and presence can drive awestruck onlookers to their knees. Yet angels are destroyers too, and their appearance portends doom as often as it signals hope. Angels are formed from the astral essence of. Lieutenant, you can't take this seriously, Rin interjected. That's coming out of an instruction manual from a tabletop game. There's no way in hell that it's accurate to reality. Yeah, well, do you have a better idea of what the hell that thing is? Bakugo asked. I mean, it's probably some sort of highly evolved avian, or perhaps some sort of primate that evolved wings, something that naturally developed in this world. I'm not a zoologist, but I'm pretty sure that if a mammal were to grow wings I dunno, would probably look like those of a bat's, not that of a beeping dove. It's a better theory than saying that it's a human concept come to life. Both of you stop arguing, now, Momo barked, causing both Rin and Bakugo to shut up. Look, we're in uncharted waters, this is a whole new world, so we don't know for certain what exactly this woman is. And we're not going to find out by you two bickering. What do you propose, Lieutenant? Monoma asked. Well, she's wearing clothes, so it's obvious that she's sapient. She also happens to be the first person from the special region to not be actively hostile towards us, even if she is unconscious. Momo analyzed the situation. Sergeant Kodai, your medical analysis? She's stable, Kodai answered. Should regain consciousness soon. All right. I want the majority of you to put your guns away, the raven-haired commander ordered. We don't want to give a bad first impression. We'll probably need to start with some basic questions, like name, origin, and her situation. But that comes later. Right now, we should set up a temporary camp here, and... or she could wake right now, sure, why not? Now, for your reward, Mirio Tagata, Toshinori Yagi, one of the strongest men on the entire continent bellowed out, as he pulled out the great sword from behind his back. Yes, sir, the younger blonde man exclaimed, excited as can be. Next to the two of them were the members of their respective parties. For Mirio, it was the elven archer, Tamaki Imajiki, and the witch, Nijire Hado, while for Toshinori, it was Mirai Sasaki, a cleric who was also Mirio's mentor, and Sorihiko Torino, a rogue, and Toshinori's old mentor. Out in the middle of the empty plains, with the only other witness being the rising sun beside them, a special ritual was happening. One that was hundreds of years old, and one where it last happened several decades prior, with Toshinori and his own mentor, Nana Shimura. Someone told me this once. There's a difference between being lucky and deserving. One's an accident, the other a reward. Never get the two confused. Take that to heart, young man. This gift, you earned it with your own valiant efforts. Now, take this. Nodding, Mirio held out his hand, and took the great sword from Toshinori. With that, Mirio Tagata was now the newest wielder of One for All. The first thing that Melissa saw when she regained consciousness was that she was surrounded by people. Well, surrounded might have been a bad word choice. They were clearly giving her space, and none of them were holding any weapons towards her, so that was nice. None of them were wearing any clothes she recognized. In fact, oddly enough, all of them were wearing the same exact set of clothes. They were green, with small blotches of tan, brown and black all over them. Plus, they had vests and pouches on top of all that, too. What weirded her out more was the fact that their wagons were also green, and that they seemed to lack any beasts pulling them. Upon a closer inspection, she saw that they had glass on them, so it was more accurate to say that they were carriages. But still, where were the beasts? Looking towards the people who have found her, she could tell that they were all human. However, she could tell just by their outfits that they were certainly not Imperials. Perhaps mercenaries. They seemed to be wary of her, but they didn't have any swords drawn out on her. Not even a crossbow, just some black, long sticks, flintlocks. They were carrying flintlocks. Hell, even their beast-less carriages had giant flintlocks mounted on top of them. Alright, that made Melissa's analysis of these individuals go up much higher. Whoever they work for is either a genius or very wealthy. She didn't recognize what sort of flintlocks they were carrying, but it was clear from their posture that they knew how to use them. Was some new model created? And if so, by who? Questions for later. Right now, she had a few options. She could simply try to escape, but she would prefer to not spill blood. Maybe they just wanted to talk to help her. There was no way that they would simply be that benevolent. Maybe they. Sav Ibi. Getting out of her thoughts, Melissa saw that one of the strangers approached her. She was tall, clearly well built, with raven black hair in a ponytail, and seemed friendly enough. She was most likely the leader, since she was the one who said, "Hello there." But her accent was atrocious. It was obvious that Common was not her first language. Melissa figured that if she wanted to appear friendlier, speaking their native language was probably a good way to earn their trust, right? Using her telepathy, Melissa picked around the woman's brain, and then cross-referenced her thoughts with Melissa's language catalog. Japanese. That's a new one. It didn't matter. Opening her mouth, Melissa decided to go with a standard, "Hello. Konnichiwa." Then the screaming began. On the other side of the continent, the land was dark. Whether it was due to the fact that the sun was being blocked out, or it had always been like this, no one could say for sure. Within that dark countryside, near the ends of the earth, a dark castle could be seen. Within it, a meeting was being held, with 8 individuals in attendance, all sitting around a circular table. "Thank you all for coming," the host, one sporting curly green hair and red horns, said. "I'm going to cut to the chase," he continued. "As of now, we have successfully reclaimed every part of Demonium that we lost in the last 7 years. Congratulations all around." The other members of his council cheered and celebrated for their victory, but were quickly silenced when they saw their leader raise his hand, a request for them to quiet down. "Now, to my more personal matters," the host announced. "We all saw it earlier today, didn't we? The falling star in the middle of the day? I'm sure you all know its significance." All of his subordinates knew what that meant. "I have peered into the oracle fire, and I know both that she has indeed arrived in this material plane of ours, and that her current location is on the other side of the continent. She seems to have made contact with an unknown group, however. Their weapons and technology are unfamiliar to us. The time to act is now," he said, standing up. "Kurogiri." "Yes, master?" The shadow demon seated next to him spoke. "Send your shadow demons all throughout the continent. Every major city, every capital, every port, I want one of my spies there. I'll leave you and Shitai in command. It shall be done, sir, the dark elf, Shitai, said, as Kurogiri nodded his head. Excellent. Now, Hitoshi. Boss? Send your messengers to my territories that are governed by Himiko, Tuya, Ryo, Shuichi and Setsuna. Alert them to the news, and tell them to remain vigilant for her. Consider it done. The purple-haired human saluted his employer. Good. And now, my dear sister, Eri. The horned girl looked up. Ni-chan? The men she has made contact with are a strange group, and given the location, I have predicted that they may have originated from the Colobus Hills. I want you to go there, investigate it quietly, and please, come back to me safely. Anything for you, Ni-chan, the horned teenager said. Thank you. Now for the rest of you. This is a royal decree. Inform your subordinates and order them to begin their search. Tell them in detail, how she looks, how she acts. I don't want them to miss her. I want them to find Melissa Shield, and to bring her here. As all the demon lords bowed at the command, he said, meeting adjourned. Retreating back to this throne room, a smile appeared on his freckled face. The Demon King, Izuku Midoriya, liked it when plans came to fruition. What the beep? Holy shit. Jesus Christ. Of all the things to happen, Momo was not expecting that.
When the winged lady began getting up, she had gestured to everyone else to lower their weapons, so as to not frighten her. She also signed to them to give her room to breathe, and that she would be the one to make first contact. So far, so good. She slowly approached her, so as to not frighten her, then said a standard, "Hello there," in Latin. Then, everything did a complete 180. The first thing that came out of the lady's mouth was, "Hello," in perfect Japanese. Hence why everyone was now panicking, because absolutely no one saw that coming. It was up to Momo to salvage this. How the beep do you speak Japanese? Kaibara yells out. Great.
I know all spoken languages, the blonde woman replied, as if it was the most obvious answer. I knew it. Bakugo yelled out, his smile looking ferocious. I was beeping right. What the hell are you talking about? Subaraba asked. She's an angel. They can speak every language. For the love of God, she's not an angel, Rin groaned. Yes, I am, the blonde woman said. Immediately, the shouting and screaming stopped. Everyone looked towards the winged woman, and Momo decided to seize the situation. You said that you're an angel? Yes, that's right, she said. We know each and every language. Even those we've never seen before, such as yours. Speaking of which, who exactly are you? Who am I? Momo repeated, and then realized, oh, right. Where are my manners? I'm Lieutenant Momo Yaoyorozu, of the Japanese Self-Defense Force. A soldier, huh? Melissa asked. I've never heard of this, Japan, place, though. Kirishima seems more than happy to answer the angel's questions. Oh, we're from the other side of the gate. Ow. Sergeant, what was that for? Never heard of the phrase, loose lips sink ships, Corporal. Kendo hissed. You're from the gate? The angel repeated. Well, that explains a lot. Momo hummed. Wait, what do you mean by that? The Colobus Hills Gate, the blonde said. It's an ancient structure that magically appears in other realms, probably some old wizard's experiment gone wrong. I'm assuming that it showed up in your homeland. Incredibly large, white marble, has several blue crystals adorning it. That actually describes it to an uncanny degree, Momo said. How did you know that?
That artifact has been around for a millennia, she replied. And besides, it's the only notable thing about the Colobus Hills. The rest of the area around it is unremarkable. Normal trees, normal beasts, no monsters, or anything. The only reason no one has ever settled in that land is due to the fact that the gate is there. No one wants to gamble what comes out the other side, except for the Imperials, and absolutely no one wants to be near them.
The Imperials? Aoyama asked. Are they armor-wearing humans, perchance? Yep. Those would be soldiers of the Todoroki Empire. Entirely human, conquer with no remorse, the majority of them wielding spears and rectangular shields, all that, she said. Every now and then, the Emperor sends his most disloyal troops to investigate the gate. If they come back with nothing to report, good. If they don't come back at all, even better. Itsuka. Are you writing this down? Momo whispered to his girlfriend. Every single word, she whispered back. Wait, all human? Momo asked. We saw several monsters attacking our city alongside their soldiers. Giants with horns, a couple of them even wielding weapons.
No one noticed Kirishima slightly flinching. They were probably either hired mercenaries or bullied into subservience, the blonde angel explained. The Todoroki Empire values strength above all else, so they're bound to have a couple of soldiers capable of going toe-to-toe with even the strongest of other races.
Huh, I see. Do you have any other questions? I do have one more lingering question, Momo spoke. Who are you? Oh, I see. I forgot to tell you my name, the angel smiled. I am Melissa Shield. As you can tell, I'm an angel. Well, I guess technically I'm now a fallen angel. A fallen angel? Uraraka asked. What's that? A fallen angel is an angel that retains their power, but loses the connection to their deities from which they were made. Bakugo answered, reading from his book. Whether intentional or accidental, this is a permanent stain that marks the angel as an outcast. Rin groaned once more. Dude, it's a book. For a game. It's not accurate too. Actually, he's correct. Rin looked at Melissa with a dumbfounded expression. Huh? I was judged for what the gods perceived as a crime, found guilty, and cast down to the earth to spend the rest of my existence in exile, where I met you fine folk, Melissa answered. Rin simply looked gobsmacked, while Bakugo had a smug expression. Wait, Uraraka spoke up. What crime did you commit? Melissa simply sighed, I fell in love. Komori cooed, before asking. Wait, that's it? That's it, Melissa nodded. Apparently, the gods don't like it when their agents go against their agendas and commands decreed by them. I rebelled against such agendas by falling in love. With what? A human, or something? Bakugo asked. All he received for an answer was silence. All right, Momo said, glossing over Melissa's silence. What are you going to do now? Well, now I'm going to cross the continent to be with my beloved. He's on the other side of the Occidensian continent, in case you didn't happen to know which continent you're on. No, we don't. The journey will be a hard one, especially as I have been stripped of most of my divine powers. I'll have to deal with monsters, hostile demi-humans, Imperials, evil magic users, pirates, dragons, sea monsters, other angels sent to assassinate me, vampires, bandits. Whoa, Sato said, stopping her. We have to deal with all that? What do you mean? Our superiors ordered us to explore the land around us. We have no idea about anything out here, so we're supposed to investigate, and come back with our findings in 1 month, Momo explained. In fact, today is our first day on the job. I see, Melissa analyzed. Well, it seems quite clear that you're all foreigners. You're most likely going to need a guide to survive out here. Quite a few dangers. And it would be best for you to not travel alone, Momo said. Is this going where I think it's going? Kodai whispered to Komori. Probably, the brown-haired botanist whispered back. Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, Melissa announced. I have a proposition. A proposition? Momo repeated. Yes, Melissa exclaimed, standing up, unsheathing her sword, and pointing it to the sky. Allow me to accompany you and your team on your noble quest. I shall provide you with both protection and information about this world. In exchange, I ask you to go in the direction where my beloved is. I shall be your guide for as long until the two of us are reunited. Oh, well, that's certainly an offer, Lieutenant. Permission to privately speak with you? Bakugo requested. Permission granted? Momo replied, as Bakugo pulled her away from the main group. Take the deal, he whispered. What? Why? Reason 1, she'll act as our living map. She knows the layout of the land, and knows where her boyfriend or whatever lives, so she'll be guiding us in a straight line. This also means that we'll be able to turn back and know where to go, and what dangers will be there. And the second reason? Momo whispered. She's a literal angel, 1 step lower from actual gods. Bakugo deadpanned. Even if most of her powers are gone, the locals out here would have to be suicidally stupid to go up against her. Plus, I'm pretty sure anyone who doesn't fight us will immediately try to help us, since they'll think we're holy enough to be an angel's entourage. That sounds morally compromising. Well, what's more morally compromising? The spiky blonde asked. Saying a few white lies to some hostiles? Or leaving this poor girl all alone out in the wilderness? Momo internally debated it in her head. They had enough room for one more person, sure, but would that technically be allowed? These were uncharted waters, and a single mistake could kill her troops. She weighed the two options in her head, and came to a decision. Returning back to her team, she said, "We accept your proposal." Out in the middle of nowhere, between the most vile swamps and the most toxic wastelands of the continent, several individuals were meeting up for an important ceremony. The main instigator of this meeting was waiting for the others to arrive. The air was filthy, and the only thing protecting him from the smell was his white mask and full body hood. Hearing a nearby branch break, he turned to see two of his associates had finally arrived. One of them was a tall man with gray hair, the other was short and bald, with a mustache. 9. Garaki. Hari Kurono, 9 wheezed out. Kurono could see that 9 was still sick after all this time. "I see you've been waiting for us. Has anyone else arrived aside from the three of us?" "We have also arrived," a new voice called out, causing the three of them to turn. Kurono can see Flecked turn. A member of the aquatic demi-humans known as the Tritons, along with Chito's Kazuki, and Oni, Meguma Iwata, a powerful fire mage, and, oddly enough, Chizome Akaguro. He didn't think that the great spirit of murder would show up, honestly. "We're all here?" Kurono asked. "Good, let's begin." The 7 of them walked through the toxic hellscape they called a countryside for quite a few minutes, ignoring the shrieks and calls of the local monsters, until finally, they arrived. In front of them was a mound of dirt, with a corpse peeking out from under it. If you removed both the dirt and the corpse from on top of them, someone would also find a dried-out well underneath all of that. But Kurono didn't dare move anything. The ritual was about to begin. "Garaki," Kurono calls out the necromancer. "The wand?" "Right here," the bald man answers, pulling out the ancient relic. "Good. Kazuki, the soul?" "Right here, inside this phylactery," she said, showing him a green vial, with a skull adorning its top. "I have to tell you, it was a hassle getting his soul out of the 9 hells. But it's done." "Good, Iwata, ignite the candles around us. FWOOM. "Done," the flame-haired man grunted. "And his heart is already in his body," 9 spoke. "So, let's begin." "Right," Kurono said, as he grabbed the phylactery and placed it around the corpse's neck. They all stepped back, and then Kurono addressed them. "We have no idea if this is going to work. No one has ever tried to resurrect someone as a lich before, so, if we fail, it's over." They all nodded in agreement. "Garaki, do it." "Understood," the necromancer nodded. "Kaichisaki, resurrect." In an instant, the wand chimed, and an orange, bubble-like aura washed over the entire swamplands. For a few seconds nothing happened, and then, the corpse started moving. "My turn," Kurono muttered, before yelling to the heavens in an ancient and cursed tongue. "Kavatala. Zavanasa. Vakasala. Let Kaichisaki rise once more." The corpse's heart began to beat, while glowing a bright green, the same color as the vial. Soon, the entire body became wrapped up in the same bright green. But it wasn't enough. Evil spirits from all around appeared, floating around this cursed ritual, and encircling the corpse. Crack boom. Green lightning erupted from the corpse, causing Kurono and the rest of them to back away from the body. After the green lighting, there were green flames, ooze, and the souls of the damned erupting out of the well, all of them coming from the corpse, as well. And then, they heard it. Laughter. Eeeeee, the body rose once more, as the insects that were feasting off the flesh flew away in terror, and with green fire coming out of its eye sockets, but still, it laughed. Ahahahahahahahaha. Kaichisaki now walked the earth, not as a man, but as a lich. "I must say, your vehicles are quite impressive," Melissa said, as she sat in the back alongside Kirishima. It had been a few hours since Momo officially recruited the Angel as the SREU's guide, and during that time, the conversations while on the road had been lively. "Is that so?" Awase, the team's mechanic, asked. "Yes, I have never seen a carriage that wasn't being pulled by a horse," the blonde woman remarked. "Or a ground dragon. Or a giant bird, horned horse, giant lizard, liger, crocodile." Whoa, what the heck is a crocodile?" Kirishima asked. It has the physical build and size of a horse, but with the physical features of a crocodile and a dog. In fact, they can even bark like dogs, Melissa explained. They can even do tricks. Huh, looks like Rin is going to have a field day over the new wildlife we'll find here, Momo remarked. Shield-san, do you know if there's any place to rest up ahead? There aren't any major settlements around for quite a bit while, the angel said. But, there is a mushroom forest up ahead, right before we enter the desert. We can camp there for the night. Mushroom forest. Kirishima repeated. So, are they, like, as big as trees? Yes, some of them even reach up to 10 meters in height. Forget Rin, Komori is gonna have a field day instead, Awase joked. Half an hour later, the team was radioed by Kirishima to stop deep within the mushroom forest, and begin setting up camp for the night, while Sato prepared dinner. However, there was one person who was doing something else. Corporal Kanoko Komori, the team's botanist, squealed in delight, as she hugged Melissa in her excitement. Oh my gosh, Shroom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, I take it that your findings were fruitful? Momo asked, in an amused tone. Fruitful? Fruitful? Kanoko repeated back to her. Lieutenant, do you have any idea what we've just stumbled across? One day in, and we've already struck metaphorical gold. Really? Is that so? It is so, Shroom? Kanoko smiled, as she threw her hands in the air. Look at these. The world's largest fungus of the fruit body variety was discovered in China back in 2008, but it only got as big as it did due to the fact it was growing some really big dead wood. But these managed to achieve the same height without having to attach themselves to any trees. Hell, these things are practically trees themselves. We need to get some samples, like, ASAP. Well, then, it's a good thing that we brought these, Momo smiled, as she presented Komori with some plastic gloves, a face mask, a pocket knife, camera, and some Ziploc bags. Kanoko squealed once more in joy, as she gleefully took the items from Momo's hands, and ran towards the first non-giant mushroom she saw. What are you doing? Melissa asked the over-ecstatic botanist. Collecting samples. She happily replied. I start by taking pictures of the mushroom in its natural habitat, and then I use this knife to carefully dig out the mushroom, so as to not damage any of it. Then, I place them into the plastic baggies and move on to the next sample.
Oh, I see, Melissa nodded. Perhaps I can be of assistance.
Sure. Just put on these safety gloves and face masks. Don't know if they're poisonous yet.
Actually, the small red specimen you're collecting right now is a glow cap. Melissa pointed to the aforementioned mushroom. They're eaten by sapient races, so they're safe to touch. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, they can also glow in the dark, too. They're considered a commodity.
Edible and bioluminescent. Kanoko was practically drooling. 2 for the price of 1. Come and get it. Rikido Sato yelled, alerting everyone else that dinner was ready. For dinner tonight, we have Caesar salad spring rolls, with miso Caesar dressing, the cook said, as he passed around roll-wrapped vegetables and sauce. Dig in. Cold vegetables, Subaraba cringed. Hope they're not slimy. Just be grateful there's some eggs in there, too, Rin shot back. The majority of the Special Region Exploration Unit were all gathered around a lamp Momo brought out of the magic bag to use for lighting, since there was no firewood. Hey, where's Komori? Kendo asked, as soon as she asked. Woo! This was the best day of my life, Komori cheered, as she suddenly appeared and plopped down alongside everyone else. Lifting up various plastic baggies with, she said, Here, Lieutenant. I even collected some stem samples from the bigger mushrooms. Thank you, Corporal, Momo smiled, as she took the baggies and put them in her personal pocket dimension. With tonight's dinner done, we have plenty of room to store them all. So, did you enjoy yourself? Sergeant Kodai asked. She nodded her head vigorously. So many of them resembled mushrooms from back home, but they were still different. And the nature of this forest itself is quite amazing. The only plant life we managed to find was some purple double impatiens. It was crazy. Well, I'm glad to see you're enjoying this advancement in your field, Monoma smiled. There were so many of them out there, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a new genus in them. Maybe I'll get one named after myself. I can imagine it now, Komorius Kanokas, she gasped. Momo was enjoying the conversation, when she suddenly felt a tug on her shoulder. Turning back, she saw Sergeant Uraraka. Lieutenant, I have to show you something. Nodding, Momo got up and followed her astronomer away from the group's campfire, and out towards the trail between the giant tree-like mushroom, far enough that Momo could clearly see the night sky. Okay, we're far enough that the light won't affect us, Uraraka said. Sergeant Uraraka, what do you want to show me? Handing her the telescope, Uraraka said, look up to where I'm pointing. Momo obliged, and she followed Uraraka's finger. Putting the telescope up to her eye, she saw, is that a planet? Right out in the distance, Momo could see a planet. It was bright red, with magenta overlapping its surface, and stranger than that, it had a small green moon with stripes orbiting around it. Removing the telescope, she looked again, and sure enough, she could see both of those celestial bodies. While she couldn't see specific details, like what sizes they were, or what patterns they had, she could easily tell apart their colors with just her naked eye. Not only that, but tilt your head about 45 degrees to the right. Turning her head towards the instructed direction, Momo saw yet another planet, this one as gray as the moon, and somewhat reminded her of Mercury, but closer to them that she could see that it was bigger than the previous red one. Also, it had a blue moon. Weird. I'm assuming that these aren't from our solar system? The raven-haired commander asked. No, ma'am, Uraraka said. Also, I can't find any of the constellations. Well, that rules out the theory that this is an alternate version of Earth, Momo said. So either that gate took us to the other side of the universe, or we're in a completely different reality. Should we tell the others? The brunette asked. Sure, why not? The whole point of this mission is to learn, after all. Hey, Melissa, aren't you gonna eat anything? Kirishima asked. Due to my celestial physiology, I don't require food to survive, along with air, water, and sleep, the angel explained. While I still can technically eat, breathe, drink, and sleep, I don't have to.
Well, that ain't right, Sato said. Here, have one. I made enough for everyone, so dig in.
Well, if you did indeed make one for everyone, I guess it would be rude for me to not have mine, she said, taking a bite. Oh, wow. I can taste the salt and lemon. This is really good. Well, glad you like it, the chef smiled. All right, everyone, Momo said, as she returned with Uraraka. Clean up your plates, brush your teeth, and get in your sleeping bags. Bakugo, Rin, you two have the first watch. Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, Melissa interjected. If I may, allow me to take the night shift instead. Due to my nature, I will be able to keep watch, and all of you can rest completely. That is a kind offer, Shield-san, but I'm fairly sure that if we did that, we'd become complacent pretty soon. But you can still keep watch with us if you wish, Momo smiled. Very well, I shall do that. All right, Aoyama, Kodai, you have the next watch. Everyone else, get some shut-eye.
Obeying their commanding officer's orders, the rest of the squad got themselves ready to sleep, as Komori noticed something happening around them. Hey, guys, look.
The mushrooms. They're glowing. Everyone looked around them to see that, sure enough, the mushrooms began to glow in the dark. Bright blues, orange and green lit up the night, making the world around them look magical, and reminding them that they were a long way from Japan. Oh, wonderful, Bakugo growled. They're gonna keep me up all night. Komori, and pretty much everyone else, ignored the blonde's usual grouchiness, as they simply admired the scenery around them, while also taking a few pictures, for research. Soon enough, the lamp was dimmed down, and everyone began to slumber. Little did they know that from afar, they were being watched. It was early morning when Yuga Aoyama suddenly sprung up from his sleeping bag, with a sensation he was all too familiar with. When he was younger, he had a hard time controlling his bladder, and every now and then, he would lose control. In short, he had to go to the bathroom, right away. Getting out of his sleeping bag and quickly putting on his shoes, he bolted out, head fig out of the campsite, before he suddenly felt something grab him. URK. Whoa, whoa. Subaraba said, holding onto Yuga's collar. Aoyama, I know that you're technically a higher rank than I am, but you can't just disregard the buddy system like that. Please let me go, Mon Amy, the blonde begged. I really have to go. Fine, Subaraba groaned. but make it quick. Merci. Yuga thanked his comrade in French. The French sniper instantly bolted away from the campsite, and searched for a place he could relieve himself of his privacy. After running for a bit, he found an empty spot. Well, not quite empty. He saw that there were a bunch of those glow caps that Komori collected yesterday all growing in straight lines. Odd, but not the time to contemplate that. Quickly unzipping himself, he sighed in relief. Once he was done, he zipped back up and looked around, only to realize that he had gotten too deep into the mushroom forest. Added with the fact that there was a lot of fog this morning, he came to one conclusion. He was effectively lost. Mustering up as much courage as possible, the blonde sniper attempted to retrace his steps, only getting even more lost in the process. Eventually he found himself in the center of the forest, but outside of the large mushroom trees, and towards an empty space, with a stone statue. Oh, that's quite odd, the thought to himself. Upon closer inspection, he could see that the statue was clearly carved in the likeness of those Imperials that attacked Musutafu. Same armor type, same sword and shield, however, one thing was odd to him. Why carve him with a frightened expression? Snapping out of his thoughts, Yuga heard someone shuffling behind him. It spooked him a bit, but turning around, he calmed down. It was just a local mademoiselle. He wouldn't admit it, but he took a good look at her, from the bottom of her feet, all the way to the top. Long, beautiful legs, a purple dress which accentuated her wide hips, short waist, and generous chest. And to top it all off, several golden snakes in the place of her hair. Before he began screaming, Yuga Aoyama made the grave mistake of looking into her eyes. Momo woke up well rested, given how much had happened yesterday. Getting up and out of her sleeping bag, she smiled as she saw that Sato had already begun cooking breakfast, and that Melissa was patrolling around the campsite. And that, oddly enough, the sky was green. She'd ask Tsuburaba about it later. Oh, good morning, Lieutenant, Melissa smiled at her. Sleep well? Yes, I did. Thank you, Momo yawned. I take it there was no incident on your part? No, and everyone assigned to their shifts completed them, the angel reported. Excellent. All right, wake everyone else up, and gather them up for a roll call. Melissa obliged, and soon enough, everyone got up, dressed in their uniforms, and lined up for roll call. Let's see here, Monoma. Check. Kendo's here, too. So is Uraraka. And Kodai. Momo went through the entire roll call, until, where's Private Aoyama? Wait, he's not back yet? Tsuburaba asked. What? Growled Momo. I might have allowed him to leave camp to take a whiz. What? Momo was now angry. You let him leave without a buddy. He looked like he was about to burst. The meteorologist tried to defend himself, and besides, you told us just because we've got an angel, doesn't mean we don't have to keep guard. Smacking her face, Momo groaned. Okay, fine. I'm calm. This is the second day of our mission, we're bound to make some hiccups. What's important is to fix this right away. Turning back to everyone else, she said, grab your walkie-talkies and your pistols. We're gonna split up into teams of 2, she said that part while glaring at Tsuburaba, and we're gonna find our missing private. Bakugo, you're with me. Monoma, go with Kendo. Awase and Kaibara, you're a team. Kirishima, take Tsuburaba. The rest of you, stay back at camp. May I be of any assistance? Melissa asked. Sure, you go with Komori and Rin. Here's a spare radio, Momo said, giving her the device. Sato, Uraraka, Kodai, stay at camp, but keep your channels open. We might need help. You got it, Lieutenant, Sato said, as Uraraka and Kodai nodded. All right, Private, which direction did he go? Momo asked Tsuburaba. He went that way, Tsuburaba said, pointing towards the trail. Then we're going that way. Everyone split up into your teams, and don't stop until we find him. Itsuka Kendo knew how her boyfriend's brain worked. Considering she grew up with Nato Monoma, it made sense she best knew how he ticked. While most people who first met him would think of him as antagonistic, she knew there was a reason behind it. Sure, most people wouldn't say that his rough childhood was an excuse for him to act out, but at least Itsuka knew there was a method to Nito's madness. One of the biggest things she knew was that he would always try to top anyone he perceived as a rival, whether they were in school, or if he was trying to climb the ladders of the JSDF.
He would always try to one-up them, and laugh whenever they beeped up. But that was a double-sided sword. There were some cases where he would try to be proactive and beat his so-called enemy to the punch by doing something great that would get him noticed, and more importantly, validated. Unfortunately, that meant that his ego would sometimes lead to him writing checks his body couldn't cash. Sure, he kept that part of him in check during basic training, but now that he was second only to one in an all-important mission, and two of his underlings had now royally screwed up, Itsuka knew what he was thinking. He would find Aoyama first, before anyone else, and he would end up in Yaoyorozu's good books, and basically lord that over anyone beneath him. She was honestly interested on how he would beep it up. So, how are you gonna beep this up? Nito looked back at her with a raised eyebrow. Excuse me. Come on, we've known each other since, what? We were 11. I know that you're thinking of a way to get all the glory, and I'm just wondering how that plan's gonna blow up in your face, the orange-haired soldier said. I mean, remember our first-year sports festival? This will be nothing like the sports festival. He instantly defended himself, before calming down and casually leaning on a smaller mushroom tree. Trust me, by the end of this, the two of us, well, mostly me, will be remembered and well documented by our teammates. Sure, Itsuka said. And that mushroom you're leaning on can totally hold your weight. Creak, poof, oof, Nito grunted, as he hit the forest floor alongside the mushroom. Timber, ha ha, laugh it up, the blonde grimaced. FWEE, huh, the young couple looked towards the downed mushroom, and they saw that the cap burst open when it fell, and now a purple cloud was slowly escaping it. Well, that was anticlimactic, Nito humphed. Here, let me help you up, Itsuka said, as she kneeled down. Thanks. Hey, wait, do you smell anything? Yeah, something really good. Where did it come from? Nito. Oi, Nito. Hey, Itsuka, Nito asked, with a small chuckle. Can you see that rainbow river behind us? Oh, so this is how he beeps it up. Hey, Saburaba, you're a meteorologist, right? Kirishima asked. I mean, yeah, why? What the heck is up with the sky, man? I mean, why is it green? Well, back on Earth, a green sky meant that there's a lot of water within a cloud. And since this is a mushroom forest, it would explain how they got so tall, Saburaba explained. This entire area is basically one giant moisture trap. It rains, the mushrooms thrive on that humidity, the excess water goes back to the clouds, and soon enough, boom, green skies in the morning. Is that what's causing this fog? The artificial redhead asked. Kinda. Fog happens when cold air moves over warm air, the meteorologist explained. This place has to have a lot of warm air to let the mushrooms thrive like they do, but there must have been a strong wind or something earlier today, and the end result is this fog. I see. Whoa. Kirishima. Before either of them could register it, Kirishima slipped on some loose pebbles, and tumbled down a slope, where he would fall with a sudden thud, and get separated from his partner. Wow, this fog is thick. Komori let out a whistle. No wonder Aoyama got lost in all of this, Rin grumbled. Well, the good news seems to be that we're on stable ground, Melissa pointed out. It's also good fortune that we haven't accidentally run into any of the mushroom trees. Good fortune, or they aren't there, Rin quickly realized. Guys, this is Saburaba. Their walkie-talkies came to life. I've lost Kirishima. The ground beneath us was loose, and he fell. I can't find him anywhere with this fog, huh? Saburaba. Rin grabbed his radio. Saburaba, come in. We gotta help them. Rua Aarrr. What was that? Komori whispered, in fear. It sounded like a lion, Rin said. But I can't be sure with all this fog. Son of a, why didn't I think of this sooner? Melissa suddenly growled. Melissa, Komori asked the clearly frustrated angel. I completely forgot. I have a spell that can control the weather. Rua Aarrr. Well, what are you waiting for? A personal invitation. Use it, Rin commanded. Right, just give me a second. Snapping her finger, Melissa chanted, Imperium Tempestus. And within a few seconds the fog around them dissipated. The trio saw that they had completely left the mushroom forest, and were only on the outskirts of it by the miniature mushrooms growing around them like grass. In front of them was a gray desert of rock, with the only noteworthy things being the crags. And the scorpion, the size of a horse, right in front of them. Oh, Rin realized. So, not a lion. Dude, we were so close, Sen Kaibara groaned to Yosetsu Awase. Our shift was almost over, but then Kosei had to go and let Aoyama get lost in the shroom forest. Look, man, what's done is done. Yosetsu really didn't wanna hear Kaibara's bellyaching this early in the morning. All we can do now is hope that he didn't get eaten or something. Fine, Kaibara groaned. Jesus, how thick is this fog? I dunno, but it's dissipating a bit, so that's good. Shish, what is it? Hide in the mushrooms. Obliging, Kaibara did as Awase commanded, and the two of them hid behind some of the taller mushrooms as the fog began to dissipate. Once it cleared up a bit, the two soldiers could see two figures out in front of them. One of them seemed to be a woman, and the other. Holy shit, it's Aoyama, Kaibara whispered. The bandana-wearing mechanic started at the scene in suspicion. Why isn't he moving? Suddenly, when he saw the lady's hair, it all clicked. Kaibara, I'm pulling rank. Shoot her, now. I dunno, man, she's kinda hot, though. No, you idiot, you don't understand. That thing's a. Guys, this is Saburaba. Their walkie-talkies came to life. I've lost Kirishima. The ground beneath us was loose, and he fell. I can't find him anywhere with this fog, huh? Ah. Before the two of them even had a chance to silence their radios, the Medusa turned her head. Shit, was Awase's last word before he and Kaibara were turned to stone. Eijiro Kirishima groaned as he lifted his head up. So unmanly. Looking around, he saw that the fog was beginning to dissipate, at least, so he wouldn't end up tumbling down a slope like an idiot again. So stupid, he chided himself. Getting up, he grabbed his gun that fell to the side and began to walk around the area, hoping to find Saburaba. He walked around the area, and saw that there weren't as many big mushrooms. There were mostly those purple flowers, and weirdly enough, some statues. Lots and lots of statues. Before Eijiro could figure out why the heck they were all carved to look terrified, someone grabbed him from behind, restrained him, and covered his eyes with their hands. Shish, calm down, I'm not going to hurt you. They were speaking Latin, and for some reason, their voice was familiar. Listen to me carefully, you are in grave danger. You and your comrades are in the lair of a Medusa. Whatever you do, do not look her in the eyes, or she will turn you into stone. Use this blindfold I'm giving you to cover your eyes. You will still be able to see shadows and basic shapes, but it should be enough to prevent you from seeing her eyes. Please, be careful. Wait, who are you? Before Eijiro could finish asking his question, the figure was gone. Looking behind him, he figured that they fled deeper into the mushroom forest. He also saw that they left behind a long white cloth, a blindfold. Picking it up, he wrapped it around his head, and sure enough, the fabric was still thin enough that he could see the basics. Hopefully, it would be enough to keep him from turning into stone. Katsuki Bakugo was not having a good time. It began as a few small things ticking him off. First, he gets dragged onto this suicide mission. Then, one of the idiots decides to go tinkle in the forest by themselves and get lost, causing the rest of them to go look for him. Then, he gets paired up with the lieutenant, someone he wants absolutely nothing to do with, getting lost with her of all people in the fog. And now, they were being chased by man-eating mushrooms. And he didn't have any of his explosives. Just peachy. Shri, shut the beep up, Katsuki yelled back at the tentacle-wielding mushrooms. If it were up to him, he would have stood his ground and blasted each and every one of those things with his pistol. But no, Yaoyorozu ordered him to run, so run was what he did. All he could do was hope that they would shake these bastards off, because there was something really unsettling about seeing a bunch of purple mushrooms over 1 meter tall moving around like an octopus on dry land, all while trying to use their tentacles to grab him. Oddly enough, they did stop chasing them pretty soon. Right as soon as they entered a field with stone statues everywhere. That was pretty beeping ominous. Elsewhere, deep within the Todoroki Empire, a young man was walking down the hallways. He had red and white hair, and was considered quite handsome, even with his scar. Shoto. The young prince turned back to see his older sister. Fuyumi. Did you hear about what happened at the Colobus Hills Gate? She asked. Vaguely. Apparently, someone was on the other side with enough firepower to wipe out the nearly entire army that our father sent there. Do you think they could be useful? Fuyumi thought it over for a second, before saying, the only thing we have so far are Mo's reports. Aside from a reasonable reason for retaliation against us, we don't know what motivates these people. We would need to find out ourselves. So, you're planning to call out to your contacts? Shoto asked. Yes. Best case scenario, they could help us with our cause, Fuyumi said. Worst case scenario, our father stepped on the tail of a dragon, one who was far more powerful, and far more cruel than the old demon king could ever hope to be. Kosei Saburaba was having a bad day. And no, it wasn't due to the fact that he got scolded by Yaoyorozu for letting Aoyama get himself lost in the mushroom forest. And no, it wasn't due to the fact that because of their poor visibility in the fog, he might have accidentally sent Kirishima plummeting to his death. No, it was because he could potentially die to a bunch of snails. Giant snails, with arms. If he was going to give them a basic description, they would look like snails, with them being green and their shells on their backs, except they stood upright, at almost 2 meters in height, orange eyes and mouth that basically screamed, evil, and muscular arms, with thumbs. Of course they had thumbs. Because why not? Oh, and to make matters worse, their antenna could shoot out a green snot that could restrain Kosei, and pull him towards them, as if they were some sort of biological fishing line. There were only 2 things that gave Kosei hope. One was that these creeps were carrying burlap sacks, so they wanted him alive, probably to eat him later. And second, a single shot from his semi-automatic pistol to their heads was enough to kill them. Unfortunately, he was running out of bullets. ASSHHHAAAA, one of the monstrous snails hissed. Blam! The snail's reply was a bullet to the head. I already told you beepers, I'm not on the menu. The meteorologist yelled back at the snails. He already tried communicating with them in Latin, but it was clear to him that they were hell-bent on catching him. He only had a limited number of bullets to go around. ASSHHHAAAA. Hey, can anyone please come and help me? He yelled into his radio. I'm about to get eaten alive by these snail dudes. Kendo, Monoma, where the beep are you guys? Come on, Itsuka, let's panic at the disco. Nito said, grabbing his girlfriend's arm, and taking her to the dance floor, where circles upon circles of colors danced behind the purple backdrop. Hey, Nito, the orange-haired girl spoke up. Yes, the blonde asked, as the 2 of them went into hyperspeed. Woo-hoo. While getting beeped into a black hole, she asked, do you feel like we forgot something? Because I just keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something. Hey, you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important. Yeah, I guess, she said, as she turned into a mushroom parasol and spun around. Now, dance with me, Itsuka. Dance with me on this pink moon. Grabbing his hand, the young couple danced to the sounds of the space whales. Ruaarrrrr. You know, I liked it better when we couldn't see. Rin complained. Shut up and pull out your gun. Komori growled, ready to fire. In the few seconds Melissa had managed to dissipate the fog, everything went to shit. They were found by a monstrous scorpion, which could best be described as an eyesore. The top half of its body was purple with black stripes, while its underbelly was red, along with the tip of its stinger and claws, which also had black stripes. Meanwhile, its legs, arms and mandibles were orange, with the arms also having black stripes on the forearms. And to top it all off, its tail was pink, the face was black, and its eyes were yellow, with black slit-like pupils. If it weren't for the fact that it would have ripped them to shreds if Melissa didn't pull them out of the way, Rin would have thought it was some kid's first attempt at coloring. Right now, though, he just really didn't want to die. Hey, can anyone please come and help me? Their radios crackled up again. I'm about to get eaten alive by these snail dudes. Kendo, Monoma, where the beep are you guys? That's Saburaba, Komori gasped. We gotta save him. Ruaarrrrr. The scorpion tried to grab at them again. Save him. Rin looked at her like she was inane. We gotta save ourselves. Actually, I think we can do both, Melissa said, keeping her sword pointed at the arachnid. I have a plan. Run towards Subaraba's location, and whatever you do, don't stop running. Yeah, sure, we can do that, the brown-haired botanist replied. Okay, on my mark, go. As soon as the angel gave them the signal, the three of them immediately ran back towards the mushroom forest, as fast as their legs could carry them. However, Ruaarrrrr. That giant scorpion is chasing behind us. Rin screamed in terror. Don't worry, Melissa smiled. That's all part of the plan. Why did the mushrooms stop chasing us? Momo wondered. Alright, Yaoyorozu, think about this logically, she thought to herself. There were enough of them that they could have caught up to you eventually, so they wouldn't just give up without a reason. What happened when they stopped pursuing? Well, we entered this field of statues. Looking around the various statues, she saw the same thing over and over again, frightened expressions. One quick look at Bakugo made her realize he was thinking of the same thing. Sergeant Bakugo, Momo quietly said. That monster manual of yours, the one you used to identify Shield-san, did it happen to list any creatures with a petrification ability? 5 of them, he slowly answered, quietly looking around the area to make sure nothing jumped out at them. Basilisks, beholders, beatrices, gorgons, and medusas. The 2 of them quietly pulled out their guns, and with all the caution they could muster, slowly walked through the forest of stone statues. They kept walking, until... Oh, no, Momo whispered. Aoyama. Right in front of her was her sniper, completely turned to stone, with an expression on his face which showed that he was screaming in his final moments. Lieutenant, you need to see this. Turning to where Bakugo was pointing, towards some of the taller mushrooms, she silently cursed, as she saw that both Awase and Kaibara had also been turned to stone. Lieutenant, Bakugo said, I have a plan, but I don't know if it will work. Considering the alternative is turning to stone, I'm all ears. Momo immediately regretted her decision when Bakugo pulled out a pair of sunglasses. Kosei knew he was gonna die. He was out of bullets, and there were too many of those snail beeps. They had wrapped their snot antennas all around him, and they didn't care about shoving him into a burlap sack anymore. He knew that at this point, he pissed them off enough that they decided he wasn't worth the trouble to cook alive, and that they would just eat him raw. And it wasn't the type of eating he liked. It wasn't fair. He wasn't supposed to die 2 days into this mission. He was supposed to explore this place with his buddy, Sen. They would discover new lands, slay dragons, get themselves each a harem of monster girls, and live a full-blown isekai life, not this. A small part of him hoped these snails would get sick from eating him. So, as they approached him, their hands at the ready, he closed his eyes, and... Ruaarrrrr. Whatever that noise was, it grabbed the snails' attention, because they all stopped drooling over him, and turned their heads to whatever the beep made that noise. That's when the mushroom in front of them began to fall. Something big was coming towards them. But what? Gangway, gangway, get the beep out of our way. Is that Rin? Sure enough, Kosei could see Shield, Rin and Komori running towards him and the snail dudes. And behind them, was the ugliest beeping scorpion he had ever seen in his life. Like, seriously, who the beep was behind the color choices on that thing? Slash, are you all right? Shield asked, slicing away at the snot ropes with her rope. Are you kidding? You just saved my ass, thank you. Kosei said, happily. Thank us later, Rin yelled. We gotta get out of here before. Ruaarrrrr. Before Kosei could register what happened, the angel immediately grabbed him, Rin, and Komori, and proceeded to fly them towards the nearest highest ground, far away from the monstrous scorpion and snails, who proceeded to attack each other. Are you sure this will work? Momo asked. Trust me, I saw it once on an Amazon commercial, the spiky blonde next to her explained. Basically, if the monster's a Medusa, we just have to shove these sunglasses on her face while not looking at her eyes, and bam, she can't turn us into stone anymore. Fine, but we're doing this only if we run into her, Momo said. Shish, someone's coming. The 2 of them immediately ducked behind the stone statue of Aoyama, their pistols pulled out, and peeking out from the sides, waiting for the newcomer to show themselves. What they didn't expect was Kirishima, wearing a white blindfold. Kirishima. Momo slowly crawled out and whispered, pissed. Kirishima. Who's there? The redhead asked, pointing his gun to the ground. Shitty hair, it's us. Bakugo barked. Yaoyorozu. Bakubro. Don't call me that, Corporal Kirishima, what are you wearing? Momo asked. It's a blindfold, ma'am, Kirishima answered. It turns out, there's a Medusa living here in the mushroom forest, so I'm wearing this thing so I don't look into her eyes. How do you know it's a Medusa? Oh, the lady who gave me this blindfold told me. What lady? Bakugo asked, becoming increasingly skeptical. I dunno, Kirishima answered. She just grabbed me from behind and told me not to panic. After she explained the situation to me, she just left the blindfold and disappeared. Okay, that's hella suspicious. Well, it's better than nothing. Both of you, be quiet. Momo hissed. We need a plan of attack. Here, I have one, Bakugo scowled, as he handed the sunglasses to Kirishima. Since you're the one wearing the blindfold, you get to be the one to put these shades on the snake bitch. Kirishima scratched his head. I guess that seems fair. Shish, someone's coming, Momo whispered, as she and Bakugo immediately hid once more behind the stone statue of Aoyama. Good luck, Kirishima, we're counting on you. Yeah, no pressure at all, the artificial redhead thought to himself. Slowing down his breathing in an effort to calm himself, Kirishima nodded. He was as ready as he would ever be. He heard the sound of shuffling footsteps behind him, and he turned around. From the basic shapes he could see, whoever it was definitely wasn't one of the team, they would have called out to him immediately. And no one had long wiggly afros, which meant, that's the Medusa. Immediately he charged towards the monster, catching it off guard. Good, it must have thought its petrification ability would have stopped him, so now he had the advantage. He instantly tackled her to the ground, and went to try and place the sunglasses on her face. Obviously, she resisted, but it was actually a small shock to see that she had an arm grip on par with Kirishima's. The two of them struggled against one another, one of them trying to keep the other restrained, while the other was trying to pry them off themselves. Hey, guys, Kirishima yelled, I could really use a distraction for her. I don't want her to try and rip the blindfold off of me. Don't worry, I have an idea. Momo yelled back. Bang. A shot was fired through the air. But it was an excellent distraction. The Medusa was momentarily stunned by the sudden loud sound, and using those precious few seconds, Kirishima shoved the sunglasses right on her face. They're on. As soon as he said that, the Medusa pushed him off, and he landed on the ground. He could hear the fast footsteps of his teammates, and Yaoyorozu's commanding voice. I wouldn't remove those if I were you. That stopped the Medusa for about a second. She obviously didn't recognize what a gun was, so she wasn't afraid of the one pointed at her. She went for the sunglasses again, and all hell seemingly was about to break loose, when suddenly. You will do as you are commanded. Kirishima recognized that voice. Lifting up his blindfold, he could see both Yaoyorozu and Bakugo, their pistols pointed at the monster. He could also see Shield, with her sword at the Medusa's throat, and right behind her were Rin, Komori, and Saburaba, all of them also having their pistols at the ready. Raising her hands, the Medusa made the wise decision of surrendering. All right, I guess we should start off with the easier questions, Momo said, as she sat across from their captive. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu. What is your name? Uwabami, the Medusa hissed. Uwabami-san, may I ask, are you responsible for turning my men into stone? I am. Why did you do it? I caught the blonde one urinating in my garden, she said, her voice laced with venom. Then the fool trespassed on my property. Did he not notice the stone statues everywhere? Momo decided to take a moment to glare at Saburaba before continuing. And the other two, I caught them spying on me from behind the mushrooms. Like stalkers. Or perverts. Okay, wow, that is a lot to unpack, Momo thought to herself. All of this looked pretty bad for her and her team. Aoyama might have just ruined this lady's only food source, and while she could technically forgive Awase and Kaibara for the compromising position they found themselves in, at the end of the day, if anyone was a bit too trigger-happy, they would have killed a civilian who was only trying to protect herself and her home with whatever biological advantage she had. And all of that before breakfast. Now, I have a question for you, Uwabami said, as she pointed to the sunglasses on her face. What are these shaded spectacles the red-headed brute forced upon my eyes? Oh, those are sunglasses. Basically, they are tinted glasses that prevent the eyes from the glare of sunlight, Momo explained. And since they're dark enough that we can't see your eyes, we theorized that if we placed them on you, we wouldn't be turned to stone. Well, your theory has been proven correct. Now what, are you going to have your pet angel decapitate me? Place my head in a bag and use it on your unsuspecting enemies? Goodness, no, this is all a huge misunderstanding. We are not barbarians, we are simply peaceful explorers who simply didn't know any better. The raven-haired soldier said. Let me reintroduce myself. I am a lieutenant of the Japanese Self-Defense Force. My team and I were assigned to explore these lands after driving off the Empire from our homes. Those Imperials attacked you, too. Uwabami groaned. I hate them. That does seem to be a common theme around here, Momo said. So, what now? Well, Momo said, standing up. Before we leave, I guess it would be right to give the men turned to stone a proper funeral. We can't bring their bodies back with them, but they're not dead. Momo looked at Uwabami, stunned. What? Well, technically, they're not dead yet, Uwabami clarified. My blood, if applied within 24 hours of petrification, will reverse the process. All you need to do is to get a skilled healer to apply my blood on either the petrified victim's mouth or lips. Well, that's nice and dandy, Bakugo said, sarcastically. There's only one problem with that. Where the beep exactly are we going to get a healer with that kind of skill level? Rin, Komori, Saburaba and Kirishima all looked at each other, before giving the same answer. Kodai. Yui Kodai was a simple person. She knew what she liked. Tomatoes, anime, and everything lewd, though she never told anyone that last one. She also liked helping others, which is why she decided to become a medic in the first place. That, plus the fact that it would help pay the bills for her other 3 hobbies. However, a part of her felt like she made a grave mistake. It was probably due to the fact that after an hour of searching, Lieutenant Yaoyorozu returned with everyone else, but with Aoyama, Awase, and Kaibara all turned into stone, and being carried by anyone who wasn't a statue. Also, there was a lady with snakes for hair wearing sunglasses, for some reason. So, to summarize, you need to apply Uwabami-san's blood on everyone's lips to reverse the petrification. Do you think you can do that, Kodai? Yaoyorozu asked her. She nodded her head. Well, I guess the rest of you have worked up an appetite, Sato said, quickly adapting to the situation. Breakfast is ready. It's pancakes with strawberries. The lady can have some, too. As it turned out, Uwabami loved pancakes, especially with strawberries. Wait, Uraraka said, where are Monoma and Kendo? They found Monoma and Kendo sprawled on the forest floor, laughing their asses off. Momo looked at the Medusa. Uwabami-san. They must have breathed in some of the trog log spores, she said, pointing at one of the taller purple and gray mushrooms. They can cause hallucinogenic effects for up to an hour. Dale a tu cuerpo alegría Macarena. Que tu cuerpo es pa. Darle alegría y cosa buena. Monoma began singing off-key. Dale a tu cuerpo alegría, Macarena. He Macarena. Kendo finished him off. This won't cause any permanent damage, right? Momo asked, concerned. Other than a few memory lapses, no, she answered. Could be worse. The first thing Yuga Aoyama noticed when he opened his eyes again was Kodai looking directly into his face, as if examining him. How are you feeling? She asked. Terrible, the French sniper groaned. I had the most horrible dream. There was this mademoiselle, but she had these golden snakes for hair, and she turned me into stone. Before he could continue, however, he saw said snake-haired woman, eating pancakes alongside everyone else. She was also wearing some sunglasses. Oh, so, not a dream. Private Aoyama. He turned his head to see Yaoyorozu, and while she was smiling, her aura was that of death. The next time you decide to go out and urinate on someone's private property, the very least you could do is make sure that you take a buddy with you. Am I clear? CC Crystal. Good. Ugh. Kaibara groaned. What happened? Did we find Aoyama? I think so, Awase responded, also groaning. Hey, wait, where's the monster? Aoyama simply pointed to the Medusa eating pancakes, ignoring the choked gasps from both the geologist and the mechanic, who apparently shared the same fate as him. The next hour after that, things proceeded as normal. Or, as normally as Momo could possibly hope. After a final medical checkup, Kodai assured her that Aoyama, Kaibara, and Awase would not suffer any permanent damage from the petrification, and would make full recoveries. During that same time, Monoma and Kendo came down from their mushroom-induced high, and after getting the all-clear from Kodai as well, Yaoyorozu informed the two of them of what they had missed, and in what state the team found the two of them. Monoma was blushing red from the embarrassment, while Kendo poked fun at her boyfriend, while also saying that was a pretty unique way for him to beep it up. Momo honestly didn't know if that was an inside joke, or what. Afterwards, Momo got the written reports from everyone else, including how Saburaba was almost eaten alive by some sort of snail-like demi-humans which shared the same neighborhood as Uwabami, and the giant eyesore of a scorpion that chased Melissa, Rin, and Komori. Oddly enough though, Uwabami claimed that no other sapient person lived here. Which meant that whoever gave Kirishima the blindfold was a mystery. After the written reports, Momo assembled a small team composed of herself, Sato, Uraraka, Kodai, Rin, Komori, Melissa, and Uwabami to investigate the aftermath of the fight between the monstrous scorpion and the snail-like creatures, while also gathering some evidence. As it turned out, it was a tie. Both parties killed each other. As Uraraka took some photographic evidence of what had occurred, Rin tried to figure out how the hell a scorpion could grow to the size of a horse in a place where the oxygen levels were the same amount as back on Earth, which made Momo a bit curious, and asked Melissa if there were other cases of such megafauna in this world, and if so, what were they? Momo immediately regretted it when Melissa's answer included but wasn't limited to ants, clams, cockroaches, crabs, cranes, eagles, flies, frogs, beetles, fireflies, rats, lampreys, sharks, leeches, lynx, hornets, wasps, ravens, praying mantises, skunks, snakes, vultures, weasels, toads, crocodiles, bats, bees, owls, otters, porcupines, sheep, slugs, and of course, spiders. Because evolution thought humans had it too good, apparently. Meanwhile, both Komori and Rin were responsible of taking samples of the various new species they encountered during this little adventure, which included vials containing DNA samples of whatever material was left of both the scorpion and the snails, along with whatever organs and body parts that weren't damaged during their battle to the death. They even got some samples from the man-eating mushrooms. As it turned out, Uwabami had trained the purple fungi to chase any large animals towards her home. There, she would turn them into stone, reverse the petrification process whenever she got a craving, eat her fill, and then give the rest of it to her tentacled pets. She could hear Rin cursing about such a beeped-up symbiosis from a mile away. The only thing that was left to do was gather some photographic evidence of Uwabami's existence because, let's be honest, even Momo understood that the scientific community would be scratching her heads on how her existence was biologically possible. After some experimenting, they found out that if you looked at her eyes through a camera lens, you wouldn't turn to stone. The end result of that was after several photos for scientific research, anyone who had their phone on them asked for a selfie with the Medusa. Weirdly enough, Uwabami could have a future in modeling. After all that, the SREU was ready to leave the mushroom forest. The group had collected more than enough photos and samples, so they packed up, left no traces of their presences, and said their final goodbyes to Uwabami. Again, we apologize for what happened to your garden, Momo said, deeply bowing. To make up for it, you are free to visit the area of the Colobus Hills we're occupying whenever you like. Simply say that Lieutenant Yaoyorozu invited you, and we'll take care of the rest. It's fine, you already made up for it with the dead scorpion and snails. Now, I'll be able to eat meat for months. Plenty of time for my glow caps to grow back. The sunglass-wearing Medusa replied. However, I might take you up on your offer to visit this base of yours. Of course, Uwabami-san. With that, Momo saluted her, and headed back to the front of the labs, where Melissa, Kirishima, Uraraka, and Awase were waiting for her. All right, Awase, let's move out. The mechanic smiled. Read you loud and clear, Lieutenant. The engines hummed to life, and the three vehicles drove away from the mushroom forest and out towards the desert of rocks and crags. As the green sky above them slowly turned into a normal blue, Momo thought back to the start of her mission. They recruited an angel, spent the night in a mushroom forest, 3 of her men got turned to stone, 2 of them got high on spores, several more of them, including herself, were almost eaten by the local wildlife, and to top it all off, they ended with a Medusa in their selfies. And this was only 2 days into their mission. What else are we going to get ourselves into? They left. They took their bizarre metal beastless carriages and left the mushroom forest. They didn't even kill the Medusa. So, they were both highly advanced and capable of mercy. That made them far better than the Imperials in Mina's opinion. Grabbing her spear and mask, the tiefling followed them. She knew she couldn't catch up to them, but it didn't matter. With the help of the spirits, she would always know where they were heading, and it was only a matter of time until she caught up to them. Mina Ishido swore to herself, she would do everything in her power to ensure her crimson-haired savior remained safe in her world, even if it was the last thing she would do. It had now been 5 days since the Special Region Exploration Unit had left Uwabami's mushroom forest, and for those last 5 days, they had been driving through a desert. A dry, rocky, desert, with nothing to show for it but pictures of crags. Hey, Uraraka, how are you holding up there? Kirishima asked his car's gunner. Just keep the sunscreen coming. The brown-haired girl called out from above. Also, I'd like you to refill my canteen, please. I'd rather not die of dehydration up here. Roger that, he smiled. Lieutenant, I heard her, Kirishima, Momo said, as she reached into the magic bag, thought of a water jug, and pulled out just what she wanted. Make sure to give it back once we're done. Gotcha. 5 days, Awase, the car's driver, groaned. We've been out here in this goddamn desert for 5 days, and we've got nothing to show for it. No civilizations, no monsters, no nothing. That's not entirely true, Kirishima said. Remember that basilisk from a few days ago. 3 days earlier, the crew couldn't help but admire the creature. It looked like a chameleon, but it had 8 legs, a giant red rhino-like horn on its nose, was longer than all 3 of their labs lined up, taller too, and, if Bakugo's book was accurate, could turn them all to stone with just a glance. They decided to admire it from afar. Oh, and to make sure that the camera didn't have the flash on, as to not draw its attention. Okay, we have 1 monster to show for it, Awase corrected himself. But that's it. Well, we are in the Roops Desert, Melissa, the 5th passenger of the vehicle, stated. This place is not exactly known for sustaining any major life like, say, a sandy desert. Oh, yeah, good point. We haven't seen a single sand dune, either. Momo was about to say something when she noticed something on the horizon. It kinda looked like a rock formation, or a plant. Grabbing a pair of binoculars, she took a better look, and saw colorful rocks. I can see blue, yellow, and pink. Kirishima, she called out to her communications specialist. Radio the others. Tell them that I just noticed something interesting on the horizon, and that we'll be getting closer to it. Roger. All units, this is Kirishima, the radio crackled to life. The lieutenant spotted something in the distance. It could be an actual thing, so get ready to get out of the labs, just in case. Understood, Itsuka replied. A small part of her was hoping that whatever Yaoyorozu saw was actually something, just so she could actually prove herself out there. While she laughed off the fact that her and Nito got high off mushroom spores, a small part of her was still embarrassed by the incident. Not only that, but she knew that if she felt like that, then her boyfriend felt far worse, and he would only be more gung-ho to prove himself. Which would only end up making things worse. Not only that, but that was one of the few things the entire squad was talking about. The only other topics of interest were the giant scorpion and the snail monsters, and honestly, most people were pretty uncomfortable with the fact those things existed. And sure, she could relate. Realizing that humans aren't anywhere near the top of the food chain in this world was a bit of an unnerving fact, so of course rather than that shit, everyone would try to find something lighthearted to think about. even if it came at the expense of someone else's dignity. So really, for everyone's sake, Itsuka hoped that whatever Yaoyorozu saw was actually something. Hopefully, that would mean at least a new thing to talk about. Oh, hey, I can see it, Awase said. Whatever Momo saw, it was far closer than before. It was a location, all right. She could see blue and yellow structures that somewhat reminded her of the mushroom forest, along with pink branches. Honestly, the height itself made it seem like another forest. As they drove even closer to it, she saw even more things. Yo, Lieutenant, do you see those things flying around them? I can, Awase, she replied. She could see them all right. Whatever these things were, they were alive, and they always stayed close to the colorful structures. Maybe they were birds. Grabbing her binoculars once more, Momo took a closer look at whatever was flying around the structures. Let's see, they're a bluish silver, they move from side to side, they have fins. That immediately made her do a double take. Wait a minute, are those fish? What the actual beep? For some sad reason, Momo knew those would be Rin's first words. 5 minutes after the squad leader realized that there were fish flying in the sky, she radioed the other vehicles to keep driving, and to follow her. 10 minutes after that, they found an entrance that allowed their vehicles to fit inside, and some observations became clear. The colorful things were not some weird rocks, or some man-made structure, those were coral. And those things that were flying, or more accurately, swimming in the sky were fish. They had entered a coral reef. In the middle of the desert. Where there was no water. What the beep? Private Rin, Momo called out to him. You're an expert in zoology. Care to explain this? Explain. He looked at her like she was crazy. Explain. How the beep am I supposed to explain this? This should be impossible. Fish flying in the sky. They're actually swimming in the sky, Kodai pointed out. My point still stands. This violates so many laws of natural science. Like, for example, what the hell is keeping the fish swimming through the air in the first place? Exclamation mark. This place acts like there's water, but we can clearly breathe out here. Hell, there's not even a change in gravity to mimic the effects of being underwater. Second off, how are they breathing? Fish gills are designed to take in water and filter out oxygen. They're not designed like lungs, they can't breathe in air. Finally, what the hell is keeping them and their epidermal mucus from drying out in this desert sun, when there's no goddamn water to begin with? It was at this moment Momo realized Rin was having a mental breakdown. She needed to salvage this. Fast. Shield San. Momo looks toward their resident angel. Since you're a local to this world, perhaps you may know how this environment is at all possible out here. Melissa thought about it a bit, before responding with, magic. That explains nothing. Rin snapped at her. Okay. Momo clapped her hands, trying to defuse the situation. Since we have 5 competent scientists in our ranks, how about we use them? Uraraka, an explanation to how physics around this works would be nice, and Saburaba, assist her. Kaibara, take some soil and earth samples. Komori and Rin, see if you can identify any of the local flora and fauna. And the rest of us, Lieutenant? Monoma asked. The rest of you can form teams of 3 and scout the area around us. Awase, Monoma, and Bakugo, take the eastern path. Melissa, Hiroshima, and Kodai, take the east. Kendo, Aoyama, and Sato, you will take the path in front of you. Report back in an hour. And with that, everyone got to work. As the fish swam around them in the air, Awase had to admit, this was a nice change of scenery. Compared to the desert they had been traveling for the past 5 days, this place was an explosion of bright colors and beautiful creatures. It looked like they were on an alien planet, and yet, all of the fish that were swimming past him were definitely the types he had seen in an aquarium back in Japan. It kinda reminded him of Uwabami's mushroom forest, familiar, but with a twist to it. The twist this time around being that both he and the fish could breathe in the same place. Look alive, boys, Monoma commanded them. Who knows what's out there? I'm pretty sure it's fish, Awase said. And maybe some starfish, and the occasional crab. And I'm pretty sure I saw one of those rock lice you find in tide pools scuttling about. Smack. Ow. Bakugo, what the hell was that for? Idiot. Did you already forget what happened to you the last time we were in a forest of weird shit? The demolition expert asked. You were turned to stone. Hell, I was almost eaten by some goddamn fungus. And both of those things happened because we were woefully unprepared for what was in that forest. This place could be no different. Bakugo's right, Monoma replied. None of us had any idea that there were so many things in that forest that could kill us. For all we know, this place has just as many dangers. RRRRR. Speak of the devil, take some pictures, Aoyama, Kendo said. Aizawa's gonna flip when he sees this. The French sniper agreed, as he took some photos of the local fauna. You think I could make some sushi out of these fish? Sato asked. Absolutely not. Kendo looked horrified at the suggestion. These are reef fish. They're already endangered back on Earth. Do you really want to start reducing their populations here, too? And besides, don't you remember basic biology from middle school? Animals with this sort of coloration tend to be poisonous. Remember those poison dart frogs? Yeah, that was a bad call. There is a saying I recall known as, take only pictures, leave only footprints, Monsieur Sato, Aoyama said. Of course, we will be taking more than a few pictures ourselves, but we'll only be taking what we need for scientific research and nothing more. That's right, Aoyama, Kendo smiled. Both Sato and Aoyama noticed she stopped talking. Kendo. We're being watched. Kodai hummed, as she pointed to a starfish. Yep, it's a starfish all right, Kirishima nodded. Big and orange one, at that. Kodai pointed at something again. Crab. Yeah, that's definitely a crab. It's also orange. Octopus. Let me guess, Kodai, Kirishima sighed. It's also orange. Yellow. With red rings. Okay, that got Kirishima's attention. Turning towards where Melissa was pointing, he saw that, floating out of the coral crevices, was an octopus, around a meter in size, with a dull yellow skin tone, and with dozens of red rings adorning its body. It seemed to be observing the group, curiously. Hey there, Melissa said, as she got down on her knees, in an effort to appear less threatening. Come on out, little guy. My friends and I won't hurt you. Promise. The octopus slowly floated towards them, approaching Melissa. Kodai made sure to record the interaction on her phone, as Kirishima made sure not to make any sudden movements. Eventually, the octopus stopped right in front of them, lifted up one of its long tentacles, and waved. In turn, Melissa gave it a small smile, and waved back. Kirishima, deciding to follow suit, lifted his hand as well, to wave, but before he could register it, the octopus touched his hand. He didn't panic. Melissa didn't show any signs that this was a bad thing, and the octopus didn't seem like it was trying to grab him, more like it was trying to get a feel of him. Kirishima figured it was trying to shake his hand, but in its own octopus-like way. Slowly, Kirishima gave it his own, big smile. FWOOM. In an instant, the octopus darted away, back into the crevice, and into hiding. Kodai stopped the recording, and Melissa got up. Kirishima wondered for a second if his smile scared it away, when he heard some sound coming from the sand, approaching them. Footsteps. Turning their heads, the three of them saw a newcomer approach. He was tall, and definitely bulky. In fact, due to the fact that he wasn't wearing a shirt, they could see his rock-hard abs. But he was at least wearing a blue jacket, with gauntlets, a darker shade of pants, and a yellow and black bandana covering part of his spiky white hair, kinda like Awase. He waved towards them. Hello there. Switching to Latin, Kirishima greeted him first. Hey, my name's Kirishima, what's yours? I'm Desudagoro, but you guys can call me by my adventurer name, Death Arms. An adventurer? Kodai asked. Like, ones that explore dungeons. Yep, that's us. Death Arms smiled, pointing at himself. Explore dungeons, slay dragons, save princesses, all that kind of stuff. When you need heroes for hire, we're the guys you hire. That is so manly. Kirishima's eyes had stars in them. What are you doing here? Melissa asked. I should be asking you the same thing. Death Arms pointed a finger at them. An angelic paladin, and two human fighters, here, in the Corlium Forest, of all places. If I was a betting man, I'd say that you're adventurers, too, and you're here for the shrine's magical map. The what? Both Kirishima and Kodai were now confused. Oh, I guess that you're not there for that, then. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to tell you about it, Death Arms murmured. In the center of this coral forest, there is a large tree, and in front of it, a shrine. Etched in it is an up-to-date map of the continent. Legends say that the shrine always updates itself whenever a new part of the world is discovered, whenever new countries are created, or when new borders are drawn. It even never runs out of ink. So, the only thing a person would need is a piece of parchment to get themselves a copy of that map. Kirishima, Kodai, and Melissa all looked at each other for a few seconds before Kirishima asked, "Could you please give us a moment?" Then, they immediately huddled. "Guys, this is huge," the artificial redhead whispered. "A literal map of the continent. And one that is that up to date. The lieutenant would kill for something like that." "Agreed," Kodai whispered back. "Need to obtain it." "Guys," Melissa said, worryingly. "I'm not sure about this." "Kodai, you got any paper on you?" Kirishima asked. I have a roll used for headrests, but it can be used for this." "Alright, let's do this," Kirishima smiled, as the huddle broke up. Turning back to the adventurer, he asked, "Would it be alright if we accompanied you to this tree?" "Sure, the more the merrier. Follow me." The three of them followed the white-haired man through the coral reef, two of them excited at the prospect of such a valuable item, while the angel of the group. Melissa didn't know why, but something was off about that Death Arms guy. "Alright, what have you found so far?" It had been half an hour since Momo ordered the three teams to explore deeper into the coral forest. Since that time, the science team she stuck around with made as many observations about the environment as they could. Time to see the fruits of their labor. Well, Rin's observations about there being no water were right on the money, Uraraka said. "How do you figure that?" Uraraka proceeded to open her canteen of water, and pour some of it onto the ground. "The water isn't being absorbed into the atmosphere by any kind of magic, it's just falling to the sand at a normal 9.8 meters per square second. This would imply that all the living things in this ecosystem have somehow evolved to survive with seemingly no water. Also, for why the fish are able to fly, my current guess would be some sort of force field, but I'll need more data." "I see, Sabaraba. All the clouds around the area seem to be cumulus type, with the occasional nimbostratus. My best guess is that any water that shows up here gets evaporated as normally, and then when it rains, this coral forest absorbs whatever it needs to survive, and the rest of it gets evaporated again. So, there's a good chance this place still needs water to survive, but just a small amount."
"Okay. Kaibara? The sand here is the same type of sand we'd find on a coral reef back on Earth," the geologist explained. "It's fine sand mostly composed of calcareous fragments of biogenic origin. I also did some analysis on the coral, and the base of it all seems to be made of limestone deposits. I'm going to need the terminology of some of those words you said."
"Calcareous fragments are made up of calcium and magnesium, like the limestone. Stuff that's biogenic means that it was made by once living things, ma'am," Kaibara answered. "Thank you," Momo said, as she turned to the botanist. "Komori. Well, considering that it's a coral reef, the majority of the creatures here are all animals. However, I did manage to find some sea lettuce, a type of edible green algae," she said, showing the baggied sample. "I also noted that the algae was healthy and showed no signs of dehydration, which, given where we are, is honestly kind of baffling." "I can imagine." "Rin. Okay, so I decided to just identify any type of animal I found, because if I tried to figure out how they're all surviving out here in the desert, I would probably go insane," the zoologist said. "Good call. What did you find?" "The majority of the coral and other sedimentary life here are ones that can be found back home. The pink branch-like ones are known as precious coral, the purple tube-like ones are stovepipe sponges, the small green ones are a type of plate coral, and I saw a lot of different types of table elkhorn, and staghorn coral, of various colors, too," Rin said. "But aside from the fact that some of those corals were way larger than normal, I also saw some that looked more like freaky mushrooms or something else completely, that I honestly couldn't identify. Maybe an expert in marine biology could, or maybe they're just coral native only to this world." "And the non-sedimentary animals?" "The ones I could identify were all native to Earth. In terms of invertebrates, we had sea lice, red boxing crabs, orange sea stars, and in terms of fish, we have clownfish, Moorish idols, pintanos, blue drummers, blue tang, and do you see those giant fish swimming above us right now? Momo looked up to where Rin was pointing, and she could see that up above her, there were two giant gray fish with barely any tail, and the most odd of fins moving above them. Those are ocean sunfish, also known as common molas. Wow, Momo whispered. Nature truly was amazing. This is Monoma, come in. Momo's radio suddenly crackled. We have an army's worth of hostiles surrounding us. My count's at least 24 of them. Requesting backup, now. Momo's, along with everyone else's eyes, widened at the implications. Immediately, the black-haired woman got into action. Uraraka, with me. The rest of you, stay here. Yes, ma'am. The brown-haired soldier nodded, grabbing her assault rifle, and followed her commanding officer down the path she sent her soldiers earlier. Hopefully, they will make it in time. This is Monoma, come in. Itsuka's radio suddenly crackled. We have an army's worth of hostiles surrounding us. My count's at least 24 of them. Requesting backup, now. Nito, Itsuka's mind immediately jumped to. Aoyama, Sato, we have two. Before she could even finish her order, both she and Aoyama saw something that first made them do a double take, and then made them freeze in horror. Sato was being held down by two wolf-like creatures. Their bodies had a purplish-gray coloring, while their muzzles and legs were white. They also possessed large eyes, long tongues, and sharp teeth. In fact, Itsuka would have mistaken them for wolves, if it wasn't for the fact that they had spots and cat-like tails. And two of them had managed to pin Sato to the ground. Without either her or Aoyama hearing them, Itsuka felt so stupid. She literally warned them that something was watching them, but then the second someone called them for help, she immediately let her guard down, and this was the result. One of her teammates was almost dragged off to become puppy chow. It was now a stalemate. Neither party knew what to do. The wolf monsters were caught in the act, and they knew it, but the humans simply stared at what they were doing in confused horror. Even Sato didn't know what exactly happened. One moment he was standing, the next, this. No one moved a muscle. But then, one of the wolf creatures opened its mouth. Woof, awkward, it growled out. That immediately made Itsuka's blood pressure spike through the roof. Those things could talk, meaning they were intelligent. They were capable of planning and executing a strategy, and they were smart enough to grab Sato while no one was looking. Woof, bye-bye. FWOOM. Before either Itsuka or Aoyama could comprehend what the hell just happened, the two beasts sunk their fangs into Sato's body, dashed off at the breakneck speed of a cheetah, dragging Sato along with them, as he stirred up a bunch of dust while being dragged away. Heel, Sato. For most of his life, Katsuki Bakugo hated it when he was right. Sure, it was fun in grade school. But once he got into junior high, that shit got old, real fast. Now, the only times he ever felt satisfied with his ability to always be right was when he was trying to make a point to some idiot. But this was not one of those moments. Because, once again, he was right about something. This coral forest was infested with hostiles. Gogako Gakako. Braka 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 Braka. He, Monoma and Awase were now surrounded by no less than 24 furry monsters with huge-ass teeth. The best way to describe them was as if they were those yellow minion things, but without eyes, taller than the average person, way stronger arm muscles, claws, and their fur colors ranging anywhere from a pale white, to a dark blue, to sickly green, and brown. Hell, he even saw a pink one with those animal patterns found on rugs. RRR, Gakako. They were all jumping around the place, roaring at them, and screaming some sort of gibberish. The ones that got closer to them got shot, but they weren't letting up. Braka 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 Braka. There's too many of them. And they are not even fazed when they see their buddies get shot up. The bandana-wearing guy complained. At this rate, they'll be able to surround us, and then pick us off one by one as soon as our assault rifles run out of ammo. Well, if we need to get rid of them in one fell swoop, then I have the perfect solution. Katsuki grinned, as he opened up his satchel and pulled out a grenade. One frag, comin' right up. No, don't. Katsuki turned around to his commanding officer. Why the beep not? Look around us. Monoma yelled, waving his hands all over the area. If you set off an explosion, it could destroy parts of this ecosystem and the habitats of various wildlife. With all due respect, our priorities seem to be a little beeped up, sir. Katsuki said that last part with a hint of sarcasm. You'd rather let those things eat us than risk some coral. Just keep shooting them until help arrives. He barked. That is an order. Katsuki groaned, but obliged. Sure, he might be loud, crude and rude, but he isn't the type to be insubordinate. So, he kept shooting at the furry eyeless beepers, until RAARRR. One of the bigger ones, with horns on its head and wearing leaves all over its body like some kind of makeshift clothes, charged towards them. Bakugo. He could hear Awase yelling for him. He didn't have time to react, to shoot. But he did have enough time to see his life flash before his eyes. This was it, wasn't it? This was how he was going to die. He was going to get eaten alive by some furball, an entire world away from his country, from his home, from his parents, and from Braka. Before he could even register what happened, Katsuki saw the giant furball get riddled with bullet holes all around the head area, and fell down onto its belly, head first into the sandy floor. Plop. From behind the dead monster, he could see her. Yaoyorozu. In an instant, she and Uraraka started firing at the monsters from behind them, scaring them, and promptly making the majority of them run away as fast as possible. They were gone. He was alive. He was gonna make it back home. As the remaining SREU troops waited by the cars, Kosei looked over to his best friend. Hey, Kosei said, grabbing Sen's attention. You ever wonder why we're here? You mean why are we here, in this world? I guess it's because we were the most qualified, but I personally like to think that we're here to fulfill our purpose, Sen said. To get ourselves each a monster harem, bro. From elves, to onus, to BP witches, we're gonna catch 'em all. As the two boys laughed, Uraraka simply groaned in annoyance. Boys. Help. Sato kept screaming as the wolf monsters dragged him off. Itsuka's mind was going a kilometer a minute. Two of those wolves were fast enough that they could drag someone like Sato off with them, and they would still be able to outrun an athlete. There was no way in hell Itsuka would be able to catch them on foot. Aoyama, I need your help. The French blonde nodded, ready to do anything to help. Get on top of that blue coral, she said, pointing at the tall one that sort of resembled a mushroom. It should have a good enough view for you to be able to use your rifle. Quoi, he exclaimed, looking shocked. But I might hit Monsieur Sato. It'll be a better death than whatever those things will do to him, trust me. Following her orders, Aoyama climbed up the blue mushroom-like coral, propped up his M26 sniper rifle, looked through the scope, and saw Sato being dragged off by those beasts. He wasn't called a sniper prodigy for nothing. In mere seconds, he calculated where his comrade would be, in order to avoid hitting him, while also finding the best parts of the wolves to target, ensuring that they would stop dragging Sato off. He could do this. So, with a deep breath, he pulled the trigger, and fired. What the hell happened here? Momo demanded to know. As soon as she and Uraraka took off to find Monoma's group, they could hear their assault rifles going off constantly. Heck, it was how they managed to find the trio so quickly. Sure, she heard the distress call. Monoma's group was attacked by 24 hostiles. But she was imagining a group of marauding humans, not some oversized stuffed animals. Ma'am, it all just happened so fast, her second-in-command began to report. We were just exploring the area you assigned to us, when we suddenly heard some growing. One voice became 2, then 4, then 8, until we found ourselves surrounded by at least 24 of them. They were hiding all around the coral, using the colors to camouflage themselves, and then they attacked. It was only thanks to our rifles we kept them off us as long as we did. Momo looked around her, and started counting the corpses of the colorful monsters. And even with all our combined efforts, we only managed to kill 10 of them. Ma'am, their hides were like pillows, Awase said. The type of pillows which are so fat and fluffy, even the speed of bullets gets slowed down by them. Their only vulnerable spots were their arms and stomachs. We would have to hit them at the same area constantly just to even leave a scratch on them. The three of us almost ran out of bullets trying to just kill those things. Well, technically, The backs of their necks are also vulnerable, considering that's where myself and Uraraka aimed. Momo decided to let Awase finish before she brought that up. Bakugo considered throwing a grenade at them, but Monoma talked him out of it. Awase continued. Something about damaging the environment, or something. Good call, Monoma. Momo looked around and summarized. So, we have a species of large predatory monsters, capable of blending into their environment, and with fur so furry, that most of their bodies are basically gunfire resistant, sans for 3 weak points. 3, ma'am. Their underarms and underbellies, as stated by you, along with the area in the back of their heads where their spines connect to their skulls, Momo explained. Sergeant Uraraka and myself aimed for those areas, and honestly, it was a miracle that it even worked. Now then, it's best we gather some photographic evidence of these things, and... How? Everyone immediately turned to the sound of the loud noise, but saw that no one in their group shot their weapon. Whatever that noise was, it came from over the distance. How? Another shot fired. This time, Momo was able to ascertain that it was coming from the opposite end of the coral forest. That's the sound of an M24, ma'am, Awase realized. An M24, a sniper rifle, Aoyama's weapon of choice. Kendo. Grabbing her radio, Momo said, Sergeant Kendo, this is Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, do you read me? We heard shots fired. What happened? What is going on over there? Way before the shots were fired, Itsuka Kendo had run after her comrade. She knew it would take a bit for Aoyama to get into position, so she did what she could do. She was a star athlete, so she ran after those wolf creatures as fast as humanly possible. She saw them within her line of sight when the first shot fired. It was a direct hit to the side, making the wolf monster drop dead instantly. The second one was technically a miss, as it merely hit the tail, but it was enough to make it drop Sato and run off. Sato, are you all right? OWW, the cook groaned. I think my legs have friction burns. You're bleeding from the arms, Itsuka analyzed. How do you feel? Like shit. Hey, she chuckled softly at that. Yeah, I think you'll live. Itsuka suddenly felt her radio begin to buzz. Sergeant Kendo, this is Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, do you read me? We heard shots fired. What happened? What is going on over there? Lieutenant Yaoyorozu, we had an encounter with some hostiles, the orange-haired soldier reported. We got rid of them, but Sato is injured. Repeat, Sato is injured. I read you, Kendo. Stay there, Mateem and Monomas are on the way. Read you loud and clear, over. It had now been 30 minutes since Kirishima, Melissa, and Kodai decided to follow Death Arms to the magical shrine located in the center of the coral forest. So far, the view was worth more than any conversation they could strike. The deeper they went into the forest, the taller the coral seemed to have gotten. They had seen entire schools of fish swim above them in the sky, and they even managed to climb up to these giant green and yellow coral pads, almost like giant mushrooms, to keep up the hike. And the more they walked on top of the giant coral, the more of the reef they saw. They saw oversized versions of native Earth coral, and even types that seemed too bizarre for the likes of Earth. And walking through an alien environment that looked like it came straight out of a science fiction movie, it truly reminded them that they were indeed in a fantasy world. So, Death Arms, Melissa asked. You said you're an adventurer. Do you have a party? I did have a party, once, the white-haired man answered. 4 of us, and we all had nicknames. Me, Native, our Ranger, Takashita was our Druid, and our Wizard, X-less. You all sounded close, she said. What happened to them? Oh, they're still around, in a way. All that did was raise Melissa's suspicions even further. Here it is, Death Arms said, as he stopped walking. They had arrived. Kendo, Momo called out to her subordinate. Lieutenant, she smiled. It's good to see you. What exactly happened here? She asked. Momo had just noticed Aoyama running towards the group with his sniper rifle in hand, along with the dead creature next to a wounded Sato. We got so distracted by Monoma's distress signal, that we failed to notice these things, Kendo said, gesturing to the dead monster, who managed to pin down Sato to the ground without making a single sound. They even began to drag him off, most likely to eat him. What exactly are they? I dunno. They barked like dogs every now and then. but even weirder than that, they seemed to be capable of speech, even if it was a bit crude, the orange-haired soldier said. Also, they're extremely fast. 2 of them were able to outrun me while dragging Sato off for dinner. If it wasn't for Aoyama's marksmanship, we probably would have lost our cook. How badly hurt is Sato? His legs have a few friction burns from when they were dragging him, and the little bastards sunk their teeth into his biceps to drag him off. There may be some blood, but I don't think that their teeth got too far in. But then again, I'm not a doctor. You'll have to ask Kodai about this. Kirishima knew that this image would be ingrained into his mind forever. In front of them was a giant tree, one they had never seen the likes of before. Its trunk twisted and turned, with the color of its wood ranging from a light pink to a dark purple. The leaves on the tree were also of various colors. Blue, pink, yellow, orange, and purple, all of those colors adorned the leaves, as various small pieces of coral made the trunk their home. It was truly beautiful, something that would make most adults cry with how beautiful it was, and Kodai made sure to get many, many photographs of this magnificent tree. And right in front of the trunk of the tree was the shrine. It was a small rectangular monolithic pillar made of a gray stone, with zigzags carved on the body, and only reaching a bit over half of Melissa's height. But something that was noted of interest was the fact that surrounding the shrine was a bow, along with 2 staffs that would belong to certain magic users. But the thing that grabbed Kirishima's and Kodai's attention was that the top of the stone was slanted down towards them, revealing what they came there for. An up-to-date map of the entire continent of Occidents. Putting the piece of medical paper Kodai had onto the shrine, the ink absorbed itself into the paper, creating a whole new map for themselves. Kirishima also insisted on doing it 2 more times, to make sure in the event that they lost the first map, they had spares. And now, they had 3 copies of the continent's most accurate map. Unfortunately, in their haste to create the maps, they failed to notice the 3 swords that surrounded the shrine. Nor did they notice when those swords began to glow ominously. Kosei, what is it, Sen? Look alive, the lieutenant's back. Oh, okay. Uraraka, along with Rin and Komori, also noticed that Yaoyorozu had returned, along with both Kendo and Monoma's groups. However, they also seemed to be carrying Sato. Komori realized who it was. What happened to him? Turns out my group wasn't the only one that got jumped by monsters, Monoma explained. Great, just great, Rin drawled out sarcastically. Regardless of how it happened, he needs medical attention. Though, I see that Kodai and her group are nowhere to be found. Yaoyorozu immediately grabbed her radio. Come in, Sergeant Kodai. Where are you? We need you back at camp. Corporal Sato has been injured. No response. She tried again. Sergeant Kodai, do you read me? I'm requesting. This is Corporal Kirishima, requesting help, right now. Her radio blared out. We're at the center of the forest and we're under attack. You'll find us at the purple tree. Send help. Then it cut off. Kirishima, she knew she had to do something right away. Rin, Komori, Kaibara, Saburaba, with me. The rest of you, stay behind and reload your weapons. Shouldn't we come and help you? Awase asked. No, you're low on ammunition and some of you are tired and injured, she explained. If the situation calls for it, we'll request for more help. Until then, stay here, that is an order. Yes, ma'am. Auuggghhh, the ghost moaned out, as it launched out to attack them. I knew something was off about this. Melissa yelled, as she unsheathed her sword. Eijiro and Kodai hated that she was right. 1 minute they were celebrating the acquisition of their new maps, the next minute a bunch of ghosts pop out from the cursed weapons that were surrounding the shrine. Auuggghhh. One of them resembled a human with short hair and whiskers, wearing clothes befitting of a bamboo forest. The second one was obviously a wizard with a cape and everything. And the third one, the human with long hair, if Eijiro was going to try and describe it, looked like he was wearing a stereotypical Native American costume from the United States. Eijiro looked towards their other companion. Death Arms, help us. The adventurer did not move from his place. Death Arms. He was in on this. Melissa yelled, as she charged towards the undead, and reflected their attacks with her sword. He was using this place as bait to lure us here. Before Eijiro could even deny it, their radios went off with the same message. "Come in, Sergeant Kodai. Where are you? We need you back at camp. Corporal Sato has been injured." "Kodai," the artificial redhead called out to the medic. "You gonna answer that?" "Little busy right now," she hissed, dodging another attack from the ghosts. "Sergeant Kodai, do you read me? I'm requesting." "Oh, for beep's sake," Eijiro cursed, before grabbing his walkie-talkie, and shouting, "This is Corporal Kirishima, requesting help, right now. We're at the center of the forest and we're under attack. You'll find us at the purple tree. Send help. AUUGGHHH. Ah, Kirishima screamed, and instinctively fired his assault rifle. "Braka braka braka braka, keep doing that," Melissa yelled to the two soldiers, as each one of them took on a ghost. "It's not hurting them, but it's catching them off guard. Help me try and box them in. My celestial nature will allow me to purify them if I'm close enough to all three of them." "Ow," Eijiro hissed in pain, as he was tossed towards the coral. Before he got up, he also saw Kodai get dragged up and tossed into the air by some unknown force. It wasn't fair. There was no way in hell to box them in, let alone shield exorcise them. But neither he nor Kodai could predict the fact that the ghosts were capable of using telekinesis. So, while they also had to recover quickly from getting tossed around like ragdolls, they also had the initial problem of not letting the ghosts drain them of their life essence. All while still trying to get close enough to them in an effort to box them in. In short, it was a balancing act, where if they screwed up, they'd die. And now it seemed like Eijiro was gonna get his ticket punched. Even with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ability to teleport around, that ability was limited, and she was still only one person. Which meant that the inevitable was just gonna get there even slower. And that's while discounting the fact that whoever responded to his distress call would also come to experience a similar fate to them. It wasn't fair. He still had a lot more to do. He needed to prove himself. He wanted to make friends, be outgoing, stop being the coward he was. He wanted to thank the mystery woman for giving him that blindfold. He wanted to apologize to the masked girl. As the wizard-looking ghost cornered him, Eijiro was ready to accept his fate, when out of the corner of his eye, he saw dull yellow skin tone, and with dozens of red rings adorning a body. The octopus. Flying through the air was the large red-ringed octopus that the trio encountered earlier, before it was scared off by Death Arms. He had no idea why it came back to them, when suddenly. Wham! Ah! It wrapped its tentacles around the ghost's head, and used a spell on the ghost. The spell cast was a bright yellow dust-like cloud, and kinda reminded Eijiro of Tinkerbell's fairy dust from the movies, but sure enough, it caused the ghost to start writhing in pain. What? Before he could even stand up, several more red-ringed octopuses swam into Eijiro's frame of view, and began ganging up on the ghost, blasting it with the same spell over and over again. Kodai, he called out, "Are you seeing this?" "Seeing," Kodai answered, still not believing. Looking around at what Kodai was seeing, Eijiro's eyes bulged out of his skull when he saw an entire army's worth of octopuses floating around all of them. Oddly enough, the only ones that were attacking the ghosts were the larger ones with red rings, while the smaller ones with blue rings swam around the ghosts, as if they were trying to confuse or scare them. However, that quickly ended when Eijiro realized what they were doing, and yelled out to S.H.I.E.L.D. "Oi, they're boxing them in for you. Do the thing, now." "Oh, right," the angel said, as she immediately darted towards the three ghosts, and grabbed each and every one of them, and began to do her magic. In an instant, the bluey and undead aura of the ghosts began to fade, and was replaced with some normal-looking dudes. Both Eijiro and Kodai breathed a sigh of relief, as it was finally over.
Sergeant Kodai, Corporal Kirishima, well, almost over.
Momo had no idea what to make of any of that. She, along with Rin, Komori, Kaibara, and Saburaba, had spent the last 10 minutes running like madmen to save their guide, medic, and radio specialist from some unknown threat, without even knowing where they were aside from the general direction they went. It was a good thing that Komori spotted the purple tree, otherwise they'd be lost. Climbing up the coral was no easy feat, and it was definitely something that Rin vocally disapproved of, but this was a state of emergency, and time was of the essence. And then, They came and witnessed this. An army's worth of flying cephalopods had apparently rescued her men, and were now ganging up on whatever the hell attacked them, some kind of ghost. Regardless, they kept harassing the ghosts until they trapped them all together, at which point their guide to this world charged towards them, and began disintegrating them. She had no idea. And it was time to get some answers. What exactly happened here? She asked.
Before either Kirishima or Kodai could answer, a bright flash of light appeared, grabbing everyone's attention. Melissa had backed away from their attackers and said, "It's done." Momo took a better look at the ghosts, and they looked normal. They no longer had that bluish aura or those rotting faces. They looked like people, at ease. One of them was a blonde man with whiskers, wearing a lot of green and some bamboo decorations. The second one was a human wearing a blue outfit and a red cape, along with a monocle on his right eye. And the last one was a man wearing a traditional Native American outfit, with a fur-like cape and a feather on his head and everything.
Takashita, ex-less, native. Momo and her team did a double take as they heard a new voice. They turned to see some white-haired dude wearing a blue jacket and a yellow and black bandana. Melissa, Kodai and Kirishima looked at him cautiously, so they obviously knew him, and were weary of them. Momo decided to be cautious and quietly observe him. "Sorry it took so long," he said, as he approached the three figures, and hugged them. "But you're free now." As soon as he let them go, the three former ghosts started to glow white, and their figures began to float up, before suddenly disappearing into the sky. The soul stranger then walked away, and sat down on one of the pieces of coral, and smiled. "I'm sorry I wasn't truthful with my intentions from the start," he said. "But using the shrine as bait was the only way I knew you would follow me, and for that, I apologize." Momo and the newcomer didn't say anything, as they had no context for what just happened, so they simply let the trio do all of the talking. "Was the map also a lie, Death Arms?" "No, the map is genuine," he said. "Consider it a reward for freeing my friends."
"What?" Kirishima began to speak. "What happened to them?"
"This coral forest is beautiful, but it also comes with its own dangers. We were foolish enough to take from its natural bounty. I was the last one standing, and my anguish gave me this," the man Momo now knew as Death Arms said, as he removed his jacket to reveal that his body was being consumed by something purple and mold-like, giving off a darker smoke. Melissa's breath hitched, whispering dead. "That's right," the white-haired man nodded solemnly. "If you never arrived, my wish would never have been fulfilled, and I would have slowly lost my sanity, turning into an undead." "Wait, but your wish was granted," Kirishima argued. "Your friends are free." "That wasn't what I wished for," Death Arms said. "I wished for myself and my party to be at peace, together. Yes, they have been freed from their ghostly prisons, but I am still here. If I am to truly be free from this curse, I ask of you, Angel, to please purify me. Let me die."
Everyone looked toward Melissa, who didn't know what to say to that. She was basically asked to kill him, after killing his friends, even if he did wish for both of those outcomes. She was silent for a moment, before saying, "I'll do it."
Approaching the sitting man, the blonde angel set out her arms, placed them on his head, and began to glow white. Unlike with the ghosts, this took longer, and everyone could hear Death Arms' grunts of pain at being burned away, as he started to become green dust.
"Thank you," he smiled. "Let us meet again in the afterlife."
And with that, the white-haired man was reduced to hundreds of specks that glowed green, all of them scattering like ashes to the wind, reaching the sky, and then disappearing.
"Hey, Kosei?" Momo heard Kaibara whispering to Subaraba. "Yeah? You recorded all of that, right? Your thoughts, Rin?" Momo asked. "Yeah, physically speaking these are blue-ringed octopuses," the zoologist said.
"The only difference being that they're now over 1 meter in length rather than just being 20 centimeters, and that the ones with the red rings have magic powerful enough that it scares off the undead. Oh, and the fact that they're smart enough to live in colonies, and they tried to rescue Kirishima and Kodai from certain danger, making them also capable of morality, or at the very least, understand it enough that they consider helping others to be a good thing."
Momo nodded at the assessment, as she turned to Komori and Kaibara. "Well,
the tree, despite its odd coloration, has physical characteristics to that of an oak tree, given the shape of the trunk and the leaves," Komori said. "So my current theory is that someone either blasted it with magic, or this offshoot naturally evolved in this world, though I'm leaning more towards the first option due to the fact chlorophyll usually creates green leaves, not this. This shrine appears to have been sculpted from a combination of both marble and granite, hence the weird gray coloration, Kaibara said. Though, I have no idea how the ink on the top of it has stayed this wet for so long. I doubt there's a hollow cavity inside the base of the shrine that has reserves of ink, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's magic. I swear to God, if one more person says, magic, I'm gonna lose it, Sabaraba growled. Momo nodded along to that sentiment. It had been 10 minutes since Melissa had exorcised that Death Arms guy, and while she sent her rescue team to do some basic research on this new location they discovered, she began chewing out her 3 insubordinate subordinates. Like, seriously, did they never hear of the term, stranger danger? At the very least, Melissa was vocal about the fact that she didn't trust the adventurer for 1 second and tried to tell the others, but they were too enamored with the prospects of a map to listen to her. However, upon seeing that the map was one that showed the entire continent they were ordered to explore, her wrath decreased by a bit. At least now they knew where the hell they were going. Speaking of, the majority of the octopi had already left, and with the state everyone else back at base now was as good a time as any to grad back.
Corporal Komori, did you get some of the tree samples? Sure did, the botanist said, holding up a baggie filled with multicolored leaves.
Excellent, then we're heading back, but we're also going to be getting some samples from the dead monsters on the way back, so get ready for that, Rin, she said, getting up. Sergeant Kodai, Corporal Sato was injured in the line of duty, so treat him once we get back, post haste. Kodai nodded. How serious? He was bleeding from the biceps, and his legs had some friction burns, Momo said. Chances are he won't be able to work for the next week, at least. The good news is that Sergeant Bakugo is also a capable cook, and will make an excellent substitute for the time being.
I can just heal him. Momo turned around to look at Melissa. Excuse me?
I can just heal him, the angel said. It's one of my abilities as an angel. I simply cast the spell, and even something as bad as broken bones would be mended in seconds. Momo simply stared at the blonde woman in shock. Decking to err on the side of caution, she also asked, what else are angels like you capable of? Just out of curiosity. She would learn that the number of an angel's skills was, including but not limited to, changing their appearances, knowing all languages, healing major injuries, detecting lies, seeing in darkness, summoning monsters, teleporting, altering the weather, and reviving the dead. Shaking her head, Momo decided to deal with all that later. Right now, she had to deal with the map that Kirishima and Kodai had gone through all that trouble to acquire for them.
She had to admit, it was pretty detailed. It showed the borders of the 4 major superpowers of the nation, surrounding archipelagos, and it even had the Colobus Hills written down. So, Kirishima said, as he eyed the map, where are we headed? You remember how Awase said that he was sick of seeing the desert? Yeah? As the fish swam through the sky above them, Momo simply smiled as she looked over to the corporal. Well, how do you think he would feel about going south to see a jungle? They were here. Their tracks and trail of destruction gave her no doubt. But their beast-less carriages were fast. She would have to predict where they were going next. Asking the spirits for guidance, she had her answer, the Saltu jungles. They were in danger. Her crimson-haired savior, he was in danger. Running as fast as her mana reinforcements could allow her, she sped away from the coral forest as fast as she could. She doubted she would be able to reach the jungles before the Viridian soldiers did, but she could at least save them from their fates. Mina Ashido would make sure of that, personally. Rin, out of curiosity, what did you learn about those big monsters? You mean the ones that jumped Monoma's squad back at the coral reef? Yeah, those things, Kodai said. My analysis of their corpses showed that they had no eyes, for starters. My current theory is that they either used enhanced hearing and smells to navigate their environment, or that they had some sort of built-in receptors to detect electromagnetism, like sharks do. Anything else? Their flesh had 2 types of toxins in it, cerulide and tetrodotoxin, Rin explained. Cerulide causes nausea, and tetrodotoxin causes paralysis. There's a pretty good chance that we'd die if any of us tried to cook and eat their flesh.
It also explains why they came in so many different bright colors. It was to warn potential predators that eating them would be a bad idea, along with allowing them to camouflage among the coral to sneak up on potential prey.
So that's how they surprised Monoma's team, despite being so loud. Yeah, it was a good thing the lieutenant arrived just in time to save them. It had been a week since they were at the coral reef in the desert, and since then, they had been busy traveling southeast to head back to the Colobus Hills.
However, due to the fact they still had about half a month left on their mission, they ended up taking a new and more scenic route back to the base, aided by the map that they had gotten back from the oddly colored tree from the Corallium forest.
Their newest destination. The Saltu jungles. "This is Lieutenant Yaoyorozu," the radio crackled. "Look alive, we're here." "Oh, thank God," Kaibara groaned. "Finally, we can stretch our legs." "Tell me about it," Komori smiled. "Can't wait to touch solid grass." "Don't you mean solid ground? Maybe for you, Mr. Geologist." Momo breathed in the fresh air as she examined the environment around her. On her left, she could see hills upon hills of grass, while on her right, she could see miles upon miles of giant trees. Clearly it showed that they had arrived upon the border of the Saltu jungle. She smiled, knowing that map they got was paying off. "All right, everyone, gather around." She watched as her crew filed up to hear her orders, and smiled at how smooth things were going. She hoped it would stay that way. But for now, it was show time. "Listen up. We'll be forming pairs of 2 and going inside the jungle to gather data and some evidence to bring back with us. I want you all back here in 1 hour. Understood?"
"Sir, yes, sir." "Excellent. Kaibara and Saburaba, your team 1. Rin and Awase, your team 2. Bakugo and Kirishima, your team 3. Komori and Kodai, your team 4. The rest of us will stay behind with the vehicles. Good luck out there." Momo gave her soldiers a salute.
Yes, she knew that it probably wasn't the best idea to send their one and only medic out into the jungle, but Momo knew Kodai was a trained soldier, more than capable of defending herself. But aside from that, that girl downright disturbed Momo. Especially all of her secret stuff she brought with her. Momo shuddered, as she remembered accidentally opening that bag on their way to the jungles. Sure, everyone had their own personal tastes, but 4 of them? The jungle would be quiet, if it weren't for the fact that it was, well, a jungle. Birds chirping, rivers streaming, animals making noises, all of those little things eventually built up to make one big annoyance. But the biggest annoying noise here was, "Yo, Baku bro, what do you think we should bring back?"
"Don't know, don't care," Katsuki hissed back. "Ah, come on, man, don't be like that." Shitty hair clearly didn't know how to take a hint. "Where's your sense of adventure? This is the place that separates the boys from the men."
"You mean the shithole that's infested with blood-beeping bats?" I think you're confusing bats for mosquitoes," the redhead said. "Unless you're talking about Dracula." "Wait, do you think that vampires are real in this world? If they are, I hope they take you first. You don't really mean that." This was going to be a long hour, wasn't it? "Any cool plants?" Yui asked. "Yeah. Rafflesia arnoldi, Venus flytraps, and even a couple that I don't recognize. I mean, look at this one right here." Komori smiled, as she pointed to a giant plant. "It's a Venus flytrap. Even Yui knew that. Yeah, but they don't come big enough to swallow a person whole," the brown-haired girl explained. "I swear, the photos we bring back from here are gonna rock the botanist world." "Are we also getting samples?" "Oh, yeah, I'm getting tons of samples, shroom." Komori smiled. At least someone was having fun. "Is that a chameleon?" Awase asked Rin, as he pointed at a lizard. "Yeah, a 3-horned chameleon, also known as Jackson's chameleon." "So, they exist back on Earth?" They're native to Africa, but they've also made their way to the US, Rin said. What about that lizard?" Awase pointed to an orange one with large eyes. "Don't know, my degree isn't in herpetology. I don't know each and every reptile." "Which means that it might only be native to the special region." "Maybe, but don't get your hopes up," Rin said. "Not everything here's some fantasy creature." "Well, what about those parrots?" Awase pointed upwards. "What parrots?" "The ones with the 4 wings flying over us right now." Looking up to where Awase was pointing, Rin saw that,
Sure enough, some large, four-winged parrots. Their colors were green, blue and orange, with a small bit of pale yellow, and they were flying through the air like a sea turtle would through the ocean, slow and graceful.
Huh, the zoologist deadpanned. That's bizarre. Is it because they're super silent in the air, or because they have 6 limbs? Both, if I'm being honest. Do you think they can talk? The mechanic asked. Parrots don't actually talk. They mimic the sounds they hear from humans, Rin explained. Hell, they don't even understand the meaning of the words that they're trained to say. Turn back. Turn back. Turn back. Rin stopped talking when he heard those words. Both he and Awase looked up at the parrots again, making sure they actually heard what they thought they heard. Turn back. Turn back. Turn back, and evidently, they did. Hey, y'all. Komori exclaimed, as she exited the jungle. We're back. We bright plants, Kodai deadpanned. That's good to hear, Momo said. Kirishima and Bakugo just came back, too. So, the others are still out there? The team's medic asked. Yeah, and their time's almost up, Monoma said, grabbing his radio. Kaibara, Subaraba, this is Monoma, do you read me? What's the status of your patrol? Over.
This is Subaraba, we're on our way back. We'll be there shortly, over.
Alright, so they're running a little late, but nothing to worry about. So, what are the rocks out here like? Subaraba asked. Got any history? There are signs of erosion around some of them, indicating that there are rivers nearby, Kaibara told his best friends. What about the air? I swear, I'm sweating just by talking. Makes sense, it's 27 degrees Celsius, with 77% humidity. Yeesh, and I thought Japanese summers were hell, Kaibara scoffed. Yeah, well, we're almost back, so, crack. The two of them immediately stopped talking as soon as they heard the sound of a branch snapping. Silently nodding to one another, they held their knives, and approached closer to the source of the noise. They moved some leaves out of the way, and saw. Holy shit, Subaraba whispered. Next to a creek, they saw a woman, dressed in jungle clothing, bending down from where she was sitting, in order to get a sip of water. However, the bizarre thing about her were the large rabbit-like ears on her head, along with the short fluffy tail right above her skirt. Dude, Kaibara whispered. A bunny girl, a straight-up bunny girl. Look at her, the meteorologist said, in a low voice. What's she wearing? Some kind of crop top. And a skirt, the geologist said, getting a better look with some binoculars. But who cares about that? Look at her hair, it's frickin' blue. Yeah, you're right. She looks like something straight out of an anime. Suddenly, the rabbit woman lifted up her head, and her ears began to twitch, almost as if they were trying to locate some sort of sound. Her face was that of alert caution. Oh, shit, do you think she heard us? Kaibara asked. Probably, Subaraba said. Don't worry, I got this. Immediately stepping out of the trees, Subaraba had a smile on his face, and began to walk towards the demi-human, slowly. The demi-human noticed her, her breath hitching. Hey there, no need to be scared, I'm not gonna hurt you, he said, switching to Latin. My name's Kosei, I'm an explorer. You got a name to go along with those pretty eyes? Can you not understand me? I know my Latin's a bit rusty, but... Bam! Before Subaraba could even finish his sentence, the rabbit girl delivered a kick straight into his gut, making him violently cough up spit before falling down towards the grass in pain. Kosei! Kaibara yelled, aiming his rifle. Don't worry, I'm gonna save ya. Wham! In an instant, the geologist could feel a fist coming into direct contact with his face. Stumbling to the ground, his mind went into overdrive. How the heck did she manage to reach him so fast? Looking up, he saw that there was a brown-haired rabbit girl standing over her. It was a trap, he realized, before losing consciousness. As it approached the 20th minute, Momo was starting to get anxious. Rin, Awase, are you guys out there? Kaibara, Subaraba, what's your progress? Monoma called into his radio. Ma'am. Two of the teams still haven't responded. Still? Momo was now getting worried. Are they out of range? I don't think so, those walkie-talkies can work up to 2 miles out. So either they're seriously lost in the forest, or something's gone wrong. Momo looked towards her team's unofficial mascot. Melissa, could you please survey the sky to look for them? Sure thing, the blonde angel said, unleashing her wings and lifting off. Momo called after Melissa, yelling, "Hey, wait, you forgot to grab a radio, damn, she's already gone." Deciding she couldn't do anything about it now, she turned to everyone else. "All right, listen up," Momo shouted to the rest of her squad. "It appears that 2 of our teams have gone missing. I want to comb through this jungle and find them. Kendo, Uraraka, you're going in there alongside the teams that just got back. Report as soon as you find something." "Understood, ma'am." Kendo gave her a salute. "This is such bullshit," Bakugo shouted. "We come back right on time, and then we have to go back in just because those assholes are late? Are you kidding me?"
"Easy, man, we just have to find them," Eijiro said. "Now, where could they have gone?"
"I dunno, but if those idiots got themselves killed, I'm not gonna bury them," Bakugo hissed. The artificial redhead hoped that wasn't the case. As the 2 of them kept marching through the jungle, Eijiro was stopped by Bakugo's hand signal. "I hear something." Hearing the rustling of the leaves, Eijiro nodded in silence. The 2 of them slowly crept towards the vines, and parted them, only to see, oh my god. In front of them was a village, entirely composed of rabbit-like demi-humans. Every single one of them seemed to be wearing something straight out of the ancient Aztecs. But the most interesting part was that Eijiro couldn't see a single male among the crowd. Well, with about 4 exceptions. Said 4 exceptions were in the middle of the crowd, where a wooden stand was at the center of the village, and on the stand were Rin, Kaibara, Awase, and Subaraba in chains. "What do we do?" Kirishima whispered. Bakugo looked towards the redhead. "All right, here's the plan." Ahem. The 2 soldiers looked behind them, only to see an orange-haired rabbit folk staring at them. "Oh," the ash-blonde muttered. The last thing Eijiro saw before blacking out was a rabbit foot to the face. "Bakugo, this is Kendo, do you read me?" No response from the radio. "Kirishima, this is Kendo, do you read me? Come in." Nothing. "They disappeared, too?" Uraraka asked. "I seriously hope not," Itsuka said. Walking a bit deeper into the jungle, they could hear voices. The 2 of them looked toward one another, and silently moved closer to the source of the sounds. Getting close enough, they parted some of the plants in their way, and were amazed by what they saw. "Whoa," Uraraka murmured. "That's a lot of bunny girls." "Hey, look," Itsuka quietly said, "it's our missing guys." "Oh, great, they've been captured. Again. Now, our chiefess shall decide the fate of these outsiders," one of the rabbit folk declared. "They have a leader," Itsuka whispered to Uraraka, who just shrugged. On top of the makeshift podium arrived a warrior bunny in golden armor, one with dark skin, hair as white as snow, and eyes the color of blood, the same color as her cape. "All bow to Chiefess Rumi Usagiyama. All hail USAGIYAMA." "Should I be recording this?" the brown-haired girl whispered. Yeah, sure," Kendo whispered back, "for research's sake." The white-haired rabbit looked towards the captured men she was standing beside, silent. After staring at them for a few moments, she asked, "Why are there outsiders here?" Kirishima said, "Ma'am, we're simply peaceful explorers." Silence. Usagiyama roared at him. "I did not give you permission to speak. To trespass in our jungle is to forfeit your life. Now, I shall decide your punishment." "Oh my god, they're gonna execute him," Uraraka quietly gasped. "That's it, I'm calling the lieutenant, right beeping now," Itsuka hissed.
After much debilitation, I, the great Rumi Usagiyama, have come to a decision, the chiefess said. "I sentence these men to death by procreation."
"What?" the orange-haired woman deadpanned. As several of the rabbit-like women cheered, Katsuki looked absolutely stricken. "Nope. He wasn't gonna die like this. He absolutely refused. He wasn't gonna." "Woo-hoo. All right. Yeah." Katsuki turned to his left to see that Kaibara and Tuzbaraba were celebrating, despite the fact all 6 of them had literally just been sentenced to death. Those beeping horndogs. Even Rin and Awase were smiling. The only person who wasn't happy was Shitty Hair. "I gotta think of a way out of this. What would get him out of this jam?" There was no way in hell he was agreeing to a beeping gangbang. That absolutely disgusted him. Wait, disgust. Katsuki had an idea. "I'm gay," he shouted at the top of his lungs. The chiefess looked at him, as the rest of the bunny bitches cheering died down. Perfect. You're what? The boss bunny bitch asked. Say that again. I'm gay, Katsuki repeated. I like men, I can't get it up for women, no matter how much you try. Is that so? I'm also gay, Shitty Hair shouted, copying his idea. Women make me limp. The chiefess looked at the other 4 idiots. And the rest of you? The other 4 idiots shook their heads, and confirmed they were completely straight. All right, she said. These 2 shall not partake in the copulation. Katsuki breathed a sigh of relief. He was gonna live, he was gonna go back home too. Throw them into the blood snake's pit. Shit, spoke too soon. Momo could feel a headache incoming. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Warrior bunnies, ma'am. Kendo's voice sounded through the walkie-talkie. Our 6 missing guys were captured by a tribe of what I can best describe as rabbit kimonomimi. And 4 of them are gonna get beeped to death, while the other 2 are gonna be eaten alive by snakes. Beeping wonderful, Momo cursed. Alright, guess we're doing a rescue mission. As everyone else prepared for the rescue mission, Momo went into one of the cars and grabbed Kodai's bag. It may not be her medical equipment, but it could still help us. Still didn't like the fact that Kodai carried this stuff around with her, but whatever. Komori, Kodai, Yui's radio buzzed. It's Kendo. We found our missing teams, but they've been captured by an enemy group. Be prepared to stage a rescue mission. Understood, the black-haired woman said. What do you need from us? Lieutenant Yaoyorozu has a plan, but we'll need your help. We're about a couple of kilometers west from where we parked. Meet us there, and be ready for a fight. Understood. Over and out. Guess we're fighting our way out of another jam, huh? Komori sighed. Yes, Yui trailed off, as she noticed something. Kanoko, did you happen to see a statue while we were exploring this part of the jungle? Specifically, a head of a statue?
No, why? Yui proceeded to point at the structure to their left, one of a head. It was just a head, and was made of a dark type of stone, which reminded Yui of the statues found on Easter Island.
However, unlike those heads, this one didn't look human. The carvings showed a face with sharp teeth and tusks, a bald head, minor facial hair, evil-looking eyes, elongated ears, and a scrunched-up face, with the main features of the face being a flat, upturned nose, and a forehead which Yui could only describe as belonging to literal Neanderthals. In short, the statue wasn't depicting the head of a human. How did we miss that? Komori asked herself. We probably came through this area from the other side, so we weren't looking directly at it. If anything, we probably saw it from the back of the side, so we wrote it off as a weird rock. Snapping a quick picture, the botanist said, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Shish, Yui said, placing a finger over her mouth. I hear something. The 2 soldiers remained quiet, as they approached the statue from a new angle. Getting clear of the leaves, they both gasped at what they completely missed. It was a village, entire homes and bridges made out of stone. The builders must have carved each and every door and window out of rock outcropping, allowing the inhabitants to live within this gorge, of sorts. And speaking of the inhabitants, the 2 girls hitched their breath as they saw a whole lot of ugly. The locals were tall, easily 3 meters tall. They had hunched backs and fat bellies, but it was clear from their arms and legs that they were incredibly strong. But most importantly of all, their faces looked just like the statues. Tusks, elongated ears, scrunched up faces and swelling-looking foreheads. Yui had read enough beeped-up doujinshi to instantly recognize what those creatures were. Ogres, she whispered to Komori. Wait, how do you know that? The botanist asked. I've read fantasy manga. She half lied. Well, what do we do now? Yui hated to admit it, but Komori was right. These were straight-up ogres. There was no guarantee that they would be able to sneak past the entire village a second time. Not only that, but the commotion the rescue mission would cause was bound to grab their attention. Which meant that there was a good chance the team would be fighting 2 different enemies on 2 different sides. Wait, she thought to herself. 2 different enemies. I have an idea, she whispered, but be ready to run like hell once it works. So, do you have a plan to get us out of here? Ijiro asked. It had been about 10 minutes since he and Bakubro had been sentenced to be eaten alive in a snake pit. And currently, they were inside a giant pit, but still no snakes. Just a bunch of rabbit ladies watching from higher ground, arrows pointed at them. Actually, yeah, Bakugo said, pulling out 2 grenades from his pants. These bunny bitches may have confiscated our guns, but luckily, they didn't check our pockets. Do you always carry grenades with you? Always, he said, with a malicious smirk. Here's the plan. When their little ceremony starts, I'm gonna throw these little beauties at both the left and the right sides. When they go off, we hightail it out of here by climbing from the least elevated part of the pit, in the middle. Wait, what about the snakes? The redhead asked. Run as fast as you can, and pray they aren't venomous, the blonde said. BWWAAA. Before Eijiro could ask any more questions, a horn was rung by a blue-haired rabbit lady, signaling that the execution was about to begin. It is time.
All right, showtime, Irio thought to himself. Release the blood snake. Wait, what, snake? As in singular. Bakugo also seemed to have also caught that, but before the two of them could react, the gate across from them in the pit opened up, revealing, oh, what the hell.
Out of the gate came a giant snake, literally. It was over 7 meters long, at least by Eijirio's quick estimations, with its head easily towering over both him and Bakubro by almost a whole meter, so much so that they had to look up just to make eye contact with it. The main color it had was a dark green, while its underbelly was a lighter shade of green. It also had a hood, like a cobra, which came in both the light green coloration, along with orange diamond-shaped dots lining it like a pattern. Its yellow sclera helped its black, cat-like pupils emphasize that it was staring down at him and Bakubro like they were lunch.
But the scariest parts about it were its large, white horn on top of its nose, like that of a rhinoceros, and the 2 giant fangs it had, easily the length of Irio's forearm. Well, guess we heard it right, he could hear his buddy deadpan. It is just one snake. Please be alive, please be alive, please be alive. As Mina Ishido kept running towards the jungles, that thought kept repeating in her mind. Please be alive, my crimson-haired savior. Thanks.